Good evening. It's March 24th. This is the Selectmen Budget Finance Workshop on the budget. It's actually a Selectmen-run meeting tonight. Our chair and vice chair couldn't be here tonight, so they asked me to run the meeting. So we do have a quorum of 3. We have a full Budget Finance Committee. How I would like to run this meeting tonight is to go down in this booklet, starting with administration right through each line. I like to keep the conversation between the select board and the budget finance committee, and then if there's any questions for the audience, we could ask them directly. There won't be any public comment until the end of the meeting. As Rolf did at his meeting, it'll be a 3-minute limit. We're going to allow direct questions though if we need some clarification. Does that work for everybody? Okay. So, Don, do you have any changes to this material that we can start with?
Right, I sent out a memo on, we have a few changes on expenses. There is a $1,364 reduction in the COLA. There is the fire department CIP request. That's now being proposed to come from reserve, which is a minus $91,600. There's the changes to the Patricia Avenue recreational facility. There's some money now that's been approved from contingency for phase 1 work. That's a minus $10,000 to this budget. A phase 2 and 3 decrease in the request due to some changes in the plans, minus $37,000. There's an estimated increase in vehicle liability umbrella insurance, and this is per a better quote from the agent. Unfortunately, that's a plus $7,000. And then we have an increase in the CEO fees under revenues, so that's $5,000 to the good. So we're looking at a net budget reduction of $137,964 from what you have here in the book.
Okay. I guess as we go through these parts of the budget, if you could point out where these reductions and increases are, that would be helpful. Do you have that information?
You just read it off.
I know.
But as we go.
Where in the budget is it?
Well, the COLA reduction is under administration,
Okay.
and so that's, if you're starting with administration, that's where that will be.
And that was a reduction of how much?
$1,364.
Okay.
And the fire department is under the CIP. Or do you want to do this as we get to them?
No, why don't we do it now? If you could point out to where it is, that would be helpful.
Okay, and the
And how much was the reduction? Fire department?
$91,600.
Where at on that?
From the CIP request.
Was that for the tank 1 refurb?
So
That's miscellaneous items, Bruce.
Is that the job?
Yes.
So it's the tank one.
Yeah, it was for this year's appropriation for request, tank 1, large diameter hose, and some other miscellaneous items that were in there.
Okay.
And
Patricia Avenue, was that under CIP also?
I believe so. Nancy, is that correct? CIP? Yeah.
So how much was that reduction? That was 10,000?
And 37,000, so 47,000 together. And then we have.
So it's 136,000 minus 47. Is that where we're at?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Then we have the increase in the vehicle liability.
That would be under insurance?
Yes. And then, of course, revenue, the increase in revenue, CEO fees.
John, hold on a sec.
Okay, yeah.
So under insurance, it's plus 7,000.
Yep.
Vehicle.
And then, what is this increase in revenues from?
Chris, do you want to explain that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, insurance. Never mind.
So the increase in revenue is just because there's so much more building going on?
Increased building activity.
Okay, so that would go on the revenue line.
John, and how much was that?
5,000.
Do we have a revenue line in here?
I don't know.
Should have a permit fee line.
Oh, permit fee. Yeah, it's all the way in the back. Yep. So instead of 55,000, you're really looking at 60.
Correct.
I'm sorry, where were we?
The last page in this booklet has the revenue side of things. So if you go under the CEO line,
Page 89.
yeah,
Yeah, that's big.
it's the very last page.
Okay.
So you go under the CEO line, R3320, and that becomes 60,000, not 55,000.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Gotcha. Is that it, John?
That's all the changes, right?
Right.
I don't know if that comes from you. All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if we have something we want to discuss that goes across the different areas, would it be better to hold it till the end? You want it at the beginning?
Can you give me an example?
Salary.
I think you could start right away in their administration if you want.
All right.
All right, so let's go to the administration account. Are there any questions? What does that reduction in COLA do to the increase in the administration line?
Nancy, have you computed that?
No, I haven't.
Get up a calculators.
We'll take it at 553, 557.
Yep, 575.
Yep, sorry.
Where'd you get 553?
Reduction of
You
15.
Oh,
take this.
Sorry, looking at the wrong one.
Yeah. So the total becomes 553, 575. There was some question on that election line, whether we're gonna hold all those elections. Is there any savings that we could pull out of there in case we don't hold all those elections?
Sue, do you want to speak to that?
That is a save, you could pull some out for savings if you wanted to, just knowing that election cost is there if you did decide to have a special town meeting in
Yeah.
particular, or a special vote.
How many elections did you budget for, Sue?
I budgeted for the primary and the November this year and primary next year,
Yeah.
for an RSU vote in case there was a withdrawal vote, and for an extra vote,
But if
and
we
for
were
town
to-
meeting itself.
If we were to combine that RSU vote with the primary vote in June,
Well, and what the statute says is that the commissioner will attempt to put the RSU vote with a state
Right.
election if they can. But I put it in there because it's, they will attempt, not they will. So that's one that you could potentially remove. I just wanted to show what the cost would be of any potential election.
I mean, you have almost $2,000 budgeted for that withdrawal if it's a separate election.
If it's separate.
Department's pretty good with working with the risk,
Yeah.
with us on that.
Is everyone comfortable with pulling out $2,000 out of that line?
Yes.
All right.
With that recognition that if we go that way, obviously, the select board can then designate the,
Yep.
I don't want to put Sue in the vice on this one, but I think, yeah.
So it's 553.
So that gets you down to 551, 575. Are there any other lines that people have any questions on, where they think there might be a savings? Steve?
I have two. Code enforcement department, that jump, where's the prediction of that?
That is because of the part-time hire, because of the increased building permits that are coming. There's a part-time position,
Yep.
I think 10,000, is that right, Chris?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And going down to, legal,
Huh?
we discussed over and over why it jumped from 13-14 to 14-15, but that's not much of a reduction if we don't have those evils out there anymore.
I think the evils are still,
No, I mean, just
right.
leave it like that, but I mean,
Yeah,
the week,
I mean, there's still an ongoing court case,
Yeah.
honestly.
okay, all right, that's all I need to know.
Bob?
A question about the COLA decrease. How many employees does that affect, basically?
I
is
actually
my
think
question.
that's two, right, Don?
One.
One you? Just on. We're trying to go to a different merit-based type of system with the management,
Mhm.
and Don graciously gave up his COLA. Last year.
How did we get to 1.4 on a COLA? Where did that number come from?
Comes out of the
Austin.
Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Okay, so that's
It's a
a
COLA.
published number.
Yeah.
So Joe, I'd like to at least entertain the idea of actually adding money, and that is to consider non-union, non-management personnel, consider a 2% versus a 1.4% increase. And the reasons for that are fivefold. One is, if you look at comparative towns, we are at the very bottom of what we're paying. That alone probably isn't enough, but when you start to, and by the way, Cumberland County's providing a 2%, Richton 3%, Casco 2.25%, Naples 1.7%, Poland 2%, Standish 1.7%, Wyndham 2%, and Cumberland County 2%. What's starting to happen, and I think it's not only nationally but also locally, is we're starting to have some increases at the lower end of the wage structure. Everybody's aware of what's happening at Walmart. Target's now said the same thing, that they're going to be raising to $9 as of April. That'd be at the lowest price that they would pay, and by February of 16, a little less than a year, $10 would be the least that anybody in Walmart would make. If you go to with the Wyndham Walmart right now, above the sign as you walk in, it says hiring all shifts. So this is not something that's happening in Illinois or somewhere else. It's happening here too. I think that one of the things that this town administration has done very, very well is keep good people. But I think it's going to be exceedingly difficult to do moving forward if we don't pay appropriately. And one of the things that I learned personally, and I'm speaking personally, not as a member of the committee, as we looked at the compensation study, it is pretty clear that for our lower paid non-union administrative people, that in comparison to the other towns, we're underpaying. So I know that's an increase, and I don't like increases any more than anybody else, but I think it's time for us to really think through. And so the proposal that I would have, because union is increasing to 2, is that A, we match that, and that we do not do it for the management positions, but we do it for rank and file, if you want to call it that. And I don't know what the impact is. I apologize. I was going to try to work it out, but I didn't have enough numbers.
Do I have a second to that motion? I moved and seconded. I'll tell you my thoughts, Brian.
Yeah.
We're working on this new pay package right now. And I hate to jump in and change things we've done for the last 9 years, which is whatever the COLA is, we increase it by the COLA. Yeah. We're trying to get to a merit pay system, and I just would like us to have a chance as a select board to get to that end. That's just my thoughts on it. I understand the wage surveys and all that. I get that. But, you know, it just seems like almost an arbitrary number, 2%. Why not make it 3? Why not make it 4? Why not just pay whatever all the other towns are paying? You know, whatever their scale is. That's, to me, it's just not a good way of going about it. But that's just my own personal thought. Nick?
At some point with a merit increase, though, you have to have a base pay to start with.
Right.
And so this would give a good base pay and a 2%, so I believe it would be a good step, you know, to giving you that that place to start from. Just my opinion.
Abby?
Well, I was kind of
not sure exactly how that merit pay works. I never worked in an industry that did that. So what does that mean? If you, based on somebody's performance of you, you get more money, or?
Yep.
And then that would be like going forward, like you have one good performance report in June, and then that'd be for the whole year. And then if you screw up next year, you're gonna go back down, or?
You don't go back
No, you
down.
don't go back down. Can I
Yeah.
just, merit increases, it also helps retain employees that you have. They come in at a lower rate, and as they work and have more time to spend, they're much more experienced. They get paid a little bit more money, and that keeps them here rather than going, and looking at other places. Once you've trained them, and then you lose them.
Oftentimes you give it as a bonus. You give them a lump sum.
Oh, like a lump sum, oh, okay.
But generally, it's based off of having a set of objectives, and it's how well you achieve those. So you have to get a little bit data driven. You have to get a little quantitative about it. It's not usually done like, hey, really love those glasses, you should get a bonus. It's not that.
Well,
at
I
all.
just think about who then decides that. I mean, and if you sometimes you have personality issues and things like that. And that's kind of something
But we're looking at merit pay for management, correct?
To start with, yeah.
Yeah. Well, then how would this negatively impact that? I mean, if you rank and file as Brian put it, you got a COLA increased, and
Yeah, I mean,
I don't see how that would negatively affect it. I mean, maybe it does.
Well-
Maybe I'm missing something here.
I mean, if you set your base salary increase at 2%, your merit pay has to be at least equal to that 2%.
That's right, yeah.
So that kind of gets you in a bind, because as your management people make more money, and you say, all right, I'm going to give you 2% raise, could add up to significant money. Marshall?
Do we have any idea how many people we're talking about here? Is it 60 people, or is it 3, or?
Well, it depends on how you sort it, I guess. If you're talking about full-time employees, you're certainly not talking about the upper number. You're talking an under 20 number. So, and then you take out the management, you're talking about, a significantly lower number still. So, you get those numbers, but you're not talking about huge numbers unless you're talking about, part-time people and other classifications. Then you can get into.
Are you bringing in part-time people?
How are you defining it, I guess?
I'm open to
If
that.
I did a rough calculation on just at the administration side, it would account for about $500.
Total?
Not including,
Seriously?
not including taxes.
That's if
What
you
I-
go
what I
from
did is-
1.4 to 2.
To 2. I'm sorry, I went 1.7 to 2. So it'd be about 800,
Yeah.
800 and some odd dollars.
This would be across it. So
If I did, what I did is I took out the manager and the finance director, and then weighted it against everything else except in the selectmen.
And by the way, what I'm proposing would go across each of the places. So this would be, I think fire, we're gonna manage differently because there's been a proposal for an increase there. So I think key things would be public works. There would be impact in administration. Fire department we're managing separately. I'm trying to think of where else.
Just the office staff and public works is
Yeah,
really big.
those are the two key places. So there would be an amount of money also in public works where it would be a factor.
Is what I looked at.
Oh, you already, did you add that in as
No,
well?
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't look at public works yet.
That was just administration.
That was just
Yeah, on the administration, yeah. And Marshall, to your question on, I think I was thinking full-time, but I'd be open to either way.
Yeah, Bob?
You mentioned that the fire department has a different proposal in terms of COLA. I'm asking the chief, if you may, what his percentage of COLA increases to adjust.
I think he has it in his sheet here. I remember.
Page 33.
36 maybe? 33. I think 36 has the breakdown. What's your current?
33.
33?
If I can, we had the COLA in for our officers and admin originally in this plan. It's the general membership that we had increased at a different rate. And basically, I'm looking over my figures so I don't misquote it, but basically it rounds up to about $1 an hour per person, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, what does that amount to? About
And-
8%?
That's about 8%.
Yeah, it probably is. And then we had another adjustment next year for those same members. So it does not include our administration or our officers, if you will. It does not include the union folks because they're under negotiated terms only. It does not include myself.
Yep.
I have a question. Does the fire chief get paid salary? Or is it hourly?
You're hourly? Oh, I thought you were salaried, sorry. No, he's hourly.
He's hourly?
I have suggested salary in the past, and Bruce has, wanted to stick with the hourly, but I would suggest that, he would be better off on a salary
Yes.
than the hourly basis. But that's a discussion we've had, and, so the default position sometimes in the town is what's best for the town, and so I judged it to be best for the town financially. I don't think it's best for Bruce.
Well, I guess my question is, how many hours a week do you put in? Roughly.
Well, I do the 40 that I have to do, obviously. There's also hours that I have after, like call-outs, et cetera.
Right.
I can't even begin to add those up. It would be an
50 hours
average.
a week.
It is
50 hours a
probably
week?
realistically 50, yeah.
So if he was on
Correct.
salary,
I don't necessarily put in.
What the impact is.
Right, but if you look at what he makes, on an hourly basis,
Right.
With the additional hours, and then compared it against a competitive salary for fire chief, we'd still be under, I think.
How are all the employees paid? I mean, with all of them, between the fire department and the town office, are they paid yearly on a certain time? Are you guys paying yearly also, or?
It's very complex, Teresa, to answer it. Yes, all of them. I mean, we have weekly employees, obviously. We have monthly employees.
I'm sorry, increases,
So-
I'm sorry, the increase the COLA, I'm sorry, yeah, not
That's one
month-
annual, yeah,
Okay,
when we hit
So
July
that's what-
1, that's when the
you guys,
But
okay.
it's spread across the 52 weeks, correct? Yeah, it's just an increase.
It's not a lump sum, it's an increase to their hourly
Right.
wages.
Right, like the 1st of September, that's when all the COLA increases or whatever it is, June 1st, July 1st, or whatever comes in, okay.
Any other questions? Okay, so the motion on the floor is for a 2% increase in the COLA.
May I amend that, so just to make it clear, Joe? So it's 2% for full-time, non-union, non-management employees of the town of Raymond. I think that gets it all.
Wait,
Did I miss something, Nick?
full-time, non-union,
Well, I got
non-management.
I have a question about, what about part-time? We're going to leave them where they
For
are paid
1.4?
at what?
1.4 is.
1.4 or 1.7?
1.4.
Why?
Yeah.
Just out of
It's a
curiosity.
good question, because I thought maybe I could get it through here if I.
Can we possibly just have everybody think about it, move on with a couple other things, and then kind of rattle it in our brain a little bit and see what the other items are and come back to that?
Well, I mean, we have a motion on the floor.
No, there's a motion.
I can withdraw the motion if you'd like.
Oh,
No.
yeah, but
No,
I
I
mean,
can't?
this is a workshop anyway, it's not.
Right.
Yeah, we're not going to vote on
Yeah,
anything anyway.
So, I mean, this
Just-
is, because you still, I mean, at the end of the day, you still have to, the select board still has to give a final recommendation, which
Right.
is gonna come to us for final vote.
Right, but I'm thinking too, is we can look at some of the other lines, see what we want to pull out, see what kind of money we've got there, think about more whether the employees, because I'm thinking if you're giving that to full-time, I think you ought to give it to part-time, because these part-timers may be, been here for 10, 20 years, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's a good point, and they may be more likely to jump, I don't know.
Yeah, so
saw
to
Don
me,
Stevens on that.
it's, yeah, so this way where if we think about it a little bit more, kind of look
So
at some of
really,
the
you're
other
looking
ones.
at 2% for full-time, part-time, non-union, non-management employees.
Do we have any numbers on that? What that would?
Yeah, I was wondering if maybe that may be one of the homeworks, because I think that would be pretty hard to do right off the, I don't know, Nancy, that
least
takes
get a-
some math, right?
At least get
To
a
do that?
number
Yeah,
of people involved.
yeah. So Joe, how can I help? Do you want me to remove that, withdraw the motion?
Sure.
Okay, I will withdraw the motion.
You can't withdraw a motion. Motion,
I
once it's
cannot.
made, once it's been made and seconded, it's it's a live motion.
Okay, it's a live motion.
Correction can be made
Well,
to
you
it.
can
You can
table
amend
it.
it, or
You can amend your
table it.
motion.
Why don't we just table
A
it?
motion to table.
Second.
That you can do.
All right, we'll table it for now. Okay. Is there anything else
I
under,
promise I'll be better from here on in, Jim.
under administration?
Could be time flies.
Just a question of code enforcement again. Chris, that extra is, and I think maybe Steve asked it, it was the increase in the extra guy, part-time.
Yes, I asked for $10,000 for part-time help, May through September. And in my justification of that, the last time I spoke, our numbers are permit-wise, we're bringing in more revenue. I'm going to be asking to increase the fee schedule to include electric permits and HVAC permits this year, which is going to require more inspections in the field. That was my justification for asking for the money.
What's the rule as far as having to pay benefits? Is it so many months, Nancy? I know we talked about this before with Nathan. I know, but don't you have to, if you work so many months, don't you get like benefits? That you have to pay benefits?
Seasonal.
That you label them seasonal then is what it is.
I
Okay.
think it's 89 last or
89 what?
89 weeks.
Okay.
You all set, Teresa?
Yeah, thanks.
Peter?
Yes, I'd like to support Chris's request for the extra 10,000 for part-time or whatever he can arrange.
Okay.
I've observed Chris working in the Shoreland District, and he's done an excellent job there.
Okay, so there'll be no changes to admin. So right now, we're at 551, 575.
Yep, 'cause you're taking 2,000 out.
And then whatever the increase of 2% adds up to, you have to add that back in.
Yep.
All right, assessing. Anything there? Everybody okay with assessing? All right, let's move on to town hall. Anything in the town hall account? Everybody okay with town hall? All right, insurances.
And the liability, it's liability vehicle.
So we're at 496.21 now. Is that health and dental number a solid number, that 240?
I've already taken your advice from the last couple of years, and I've estimated that 12,000 in reimbursement will not be taken.
Okay.
That's already excluded.
All right, so we're down to 228, or is,
No,
that's
it's
part of the
already out.
240?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, it's the same.
Any other questions on insurance? Yep.
Didn't Don say there was a $7,000 increase?
Right,
And what
right.
was that on?
Liability vehicle.
Liability.
Liability vehicle and umbrella.
Okay.
So that 42.1 is 49.1.
And the new bottom line is?
496.21.
496.21.
Oh, 21.
490.
490.
490.
490,621.
Oh.
Take the 6 out of there, 490.
Okay. 621, yep.
Any other questions on insurance, Marshall?
That, liability insurance, the vehicle liability insurance, is that a one-time payment?
No,
How is that paid?
nothing.
So looking at the December appropriation report, we've already spent 90% of the allocation for this year's budget.
It went up even after we changed it last year.
So it's anticipated that we'll be about 10,000 over budget this year.
Yes. I wouldn't say 10,000. I would say maybe 5.
Which one was that, Marshall? Which?
the
December
liability line.
appropriations report.
Yeah, but what was the
Oh, under insurance,
Liability.
Liability vehicle
liability?
insurance.
Liability insurance.
Let's see, yeah, 87, so. It was Jan 1, it was at 87%. Or Jan 31st.
Thank you, John.
Where do we have the selectmen's salaries at?
that's under administration.
Administration.
And what do we have them in there for?
We got in
Up into the top one, or we just, okay?
there, we got,
Up here, the one we just, okay? Administration salaries?
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
5 members, $6,000.
So Nancy, it's in administration salaries then? Then
Yes.
you can decrease
so
it
there's
by
6,000
line.
right now.
Everybody.
5 members at 1,200.
Yeah, I don't wanna speak on Lonnie
I
and
mean,
Mike, but
there's
they
only
probably will
one
too.
person running, that's me. So you have at least $4,800 that you can take out of there.
Is that true, Sam? Is he speaking to you?
Oh,
Sam just spoke, yeah, he said take it for all of us, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, you have to leave it in for one position because it's
One
one
position.
contested race.
I'm just saying, Sam has been using his for the beautification committee.
But it goes right directly back to the town and
It
to
still
the
has to be
beauty.
Yeah,
allocated.
but you still get
It would still have to be
paid.
allocated.
Alright, so you
in,
have to
but
leave
each
two in
of
there.
those-
Two positions.
So you got a savings of, what, $3,600 there.
Minus his salaries.
If I get reelected, you have another 1,200 you could have.
49.64
Joe, is
out
that
of
a
there.
campaign promise?
Absolutely. I've never taken anything.
We know you have.
So minus 49.64 out of salaries.
Minus 49.64.
64, yep. And that's the COLA and selectmen salaries.
So we're gonna drop that final number down again?
Yep.
then?
Oh, the
Essentially, that would-
551.
essentially, that would pay for the total quality.
551,
Take down
Minus
cost all the parts.
3,600.
Rolf's,
That's a cool way to look at it.
wait a minute.
What Ralph is
Next
pointing
video.
out is that $3,600 would pay for all the COLA increase.
Now, that's a select board that I can vote for.
All right.
Wait a minute, Nick's coming up with a new number.
551.
Oh, for that.
75, minus what was the?
3,600.
3,600.
3,600. 547,975.
One more time, sorry.
547.
975.
Cool.
All right. We're making progress. All right, general assistance, everyone's okay with that one?
Do cemetery.
Do we, miss cemeteries?
Should we-
Where's cemeteries?
Oh, wait, wait.
Trying to throw me off?
No. I'm out of sequence now.
All right.
Read it.
Don't try and confuse me, Ralph.
The pages got jumbled.
All right, general assistance, no issues, right?
Right.
Technology. This technology, computers, upgrades, 59,000. What does that go to?
That's the ongoing updating of all of the computer infrastructure of the town.
So this other 50, what, is another 59,000 on
CIP.
top of that in the CIP?
51,749.
51,749 on the CIP.
That's for broadcast
Right.
stuff
So-
only.
So how much is left over in that 59,165 that can go to the CIP?
There's never anything left over in it.
I know, but how much can go to it? That's my question.
What do you mean? You have to have so much in the CIP as a max?
To me, that 59,165 has to have some wiggle room. That you can take some of that money and apply it to the CIP account for technology.
Could you take any of that and apply it to TIF? You still have some buffer in TIF. And we took 9,000 down in bonds. It would fit under some of the definitions of some of the TIF requirements.
But what are you saying, the CIP, you can only put so much, a cap as far as the maximum amount?
No, but
No.
you can put whatever you want in, but that's.
I'm
you're
trying to
writing-
find
you're-
some
you're
money.
moving it from one to another.
All right?
Well, I know, but
What
it's,
about,
are
what
you
about
thi-
the roadrunner cable? The internet for the town?
13,200, I think, is what,
Does
yeah.
that work under this?
It's
It
13,200
might,
is
because it's working towards, we'd have to look at it a little bit, but I think in my reading of it again, when I looked at it again tonight, I think it would qualify under that as well, you know, so some of that equipment could probably qualify under that as well, so you could, whatever you can move from there, you know, from here into there helps in the long run on that.
I just don't, you know, that was a long time ago, we could look at it.
Yeah, you may wanna look at that, because you still have room under your TIF, right?
Same
Yeah,
number.
you got,
Huh?
you've got some, you've got, you know, even if you looked at from last, you know, we're taking last year's, we dropped 7,000 because of bond
Right.
reduction. And we still had 43,000, I think, that was sitting there available. So, I mean, it
Well,
was,
we're using a bunch of that.
right. But I think you still have a little bit of headroom there.
But,
That line item covers annual upgrades, maintenance, replacement costs of equipment that we're already looking to replace. So we kind of have duplicity.
That's broadcast equipment that we're looking to replace in the CIP.
Correct.
Right.
But that's what
This
this
is
funding.
computer,
right,
this is system.
This is
Two different things. That's what Kevin, at least as I'm understanding it from what
yeah,
Kevin
that's
had
the confusing
said.
part.
You should have a page
Yeah,
going on the detail.
it's page 29 if you. And this is a question probably should have put in front of Kevin when I didn't see it. I'm looking at last year's budget, and included in the exact same amount, by the way, 59,165, was sonic wall upgrades and renewals, and I'm seeing additional sonic wall upgrades. Is this, and it's a big dollar. It's $4,800 this upcoming year. Don, probably not a question you can answer, but do you know, is that an annual kind of upgrade need? And
I don't know.
yeah, and I didn't mean to
Yeah.
put you on the spot, and I should have asked Kevin when he was here.
My sense would be, you know, sonic wall upgrade to me speaks to a one-time, but that's a speculation.
It was listed last year as well.
well, that's what I mean, I think, to me, you have the same number every year, and you say you're upgrading equipment every year. Are we actually doing that? And,
Right.
you know, if there's some money that can be moved to the CIP, I just as soon do that instead of just spending all this money. Yeah.
Are you assuming that, like, if you do like you get the CIP money and they make these upgrades, then some of the other upgrades wouldn't then need to be done because you've upgraded based
Well,
on the
at
CIP
two-
account? Is that what,
It's two separate things. I'm just looking for money.
yeah.
All right. To me, you got the broadcast studio, which is what the CIP is for.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure you need 59,165 every year to say you're doing upgrades. That you know, you don't upgrade computers every year. Maybe they do, but I don't.
Oh,
We upgrade a percentage of them every year and a percentage of the infrastructure every year. So not everything, but blocks of equipment each year, and then over a period of years, you've got everything replaced. I can't tell you the cycle. Perhaps it's, do you know, Danielle, 4 or 5 years?
It's usually about
5 years.
5 to 6 computers, and that's about town-wide. So that's like the fire department, the town office, our server rooms. It's not, you know, Public Works, all of us. It's not just one building or another. It's town-wide. So it keeps us up and running. Like as Kevin showed you on the tour, the server room, that's how we were able to convert to all those virtual machines. They're not cheap, and technology, as you know, is, you know, like not some of the technology is cheaper, but some of it doesn't, so.
In this budget number, $5,200 is allocated for PC replacement / upgrades. The rest, but a lot of it's servers and enterprise firewall type stuff.
And then like the software costs a lot of money, like the, you know, the Sonic Wall, the ADG, different things like that that keeps our security protocol protected. If we don't pay those licenses, then the town's vulnerable to attack, so.
I just know what I pay in my business, and it's nowhere near this. Nowhere. And I've got, I don't know, 10 servers in a room, paying all the license fees. I've got 10 stores that have 3 computers apiece at least, and I don't pay this much. I don't get it. That's just me.
Well, and I think we talked about this with Lonnie when he was here before too, is I think what happens is we need the infrastructure first, and we don't have that to build it up. I mean, you started with a whole new system and stuff like that in your stores, but I guess I'm kind of lost on, are they taking half of it, like the 51,000 in CIP, which is an upgrade, and the 59,000 in the budget is also upgrades, so is that upgrading the same thing?
No, you're upgrading 2 separate things.
2 separate things.
I mean, am I the only one who's questioning this amount of money?
I think to answer the questions, we're going to need, you know, the people who are knowledgeable, and that's gonna be Kevin. Do you want me to try to reach him and see if I can get him here?
I'm calling right now.
Yeah.
One of the questions I got is the firewall maintenance upgrade. There's like $8,000 worth of that. Can somebody explain? Oh, she just.
I guess I think we have to get somebody who's got some technology, yeah.
I think it's licensing though, the maintenance upgrade.
That's-
You pay a maintenance fee to Dell on Sonicwall yearly, so I mean, I could be wrong, but
Seems crazy.
I'd have to look at it.
Alright. Well, I'm going to community development. Skip over technology for now. Why do we have planning services was an increase by Sebago Technics?
Right, there was an increase in the contract hourly rate, I think.
Well, hourly plus there was an increase in number of hours.
Right. Alright, Conservation Commission, $10,000. And this is for the community forest project?
Yes.
We do have Mr. Rand in the audience if you'd like to hear more.
Alright, John, why don't we need an extra 10,000?
Oh, all right. So I think you've all seen the information.
Do you want a mic, John? So we can-
Yeah, I think you should.
Yeah.
God, that looks, does that have a seat? Better if you're gone. Does that work? Are we good? The reason we asked for the extra $10,000 was primarily, Joe, and the whole committee's here, was really a contingency. We provided some information that you got by email regarding our current status of the fundraising for the community forest. We've made good progress since kicking it off last fall. We have more activities certainly scheduled for this spring and summer, and a target of the end of 2015 to raise the funds to complete the project.
Wasn't the purchase done at the end of 14 now?
So at the end of 2014, what happened was that Luneco Land Trust exercised a option to buy, which they had purchased from Hancock Land for $1,000. That was their money. And that option had to be exercised by end of December 2014. And the way the agreement is that the funds need to be raised to complete the purchase by end of 2015. So
And the purchase price was what, 500,000?
the purchase price, working down through the math, was $500,000 and change. That, you know, it was a valued at $600,000. Hancock knocked off about $100,000. We got an anonymous foundation grant for 125. Portland Water District at 39,000. Town of Raymond, $50,000. Land for Maine Futures has pledged $150,000. Put a note on that I want to touch on. And private gifts that we raised through the end of last year, early 2015 was $55,000. So our gap right now is about $127,000. And that's a stretch. I think it's reachable. We're going to hit it hard this spring and summer. One of the drivers for the additional 10 was that, as you might have seen in the papers, the governor has decided to hold off on allowing bonds, releasing bonds for the Land for Maine Futures program. There's 11 conservation projects statewide that are in the same boat that we're in. Some were much closer to closing their deals and had these funds, counting on these funds to complete their transactions. Right now, the sense is we won't know from Augusta before June of this year on when and if those funds would be released. My sense is they would be. It's probably a delay factor more than a no money or money. But that's definitely thrown a curveball into our planning. And having the town vote on the $10,000 at town meeting, we felt was a stronger place to be rather than try to do a special meeting in the fall as we come down the finish line and try to close the gap with a special meeting and a special request when we know the turnout would be thinner. So all that said, I would stand here fairly and pledge that if our fundraising goes great guns this fall and we don't need that $10,000, that's $10,000 that we wouldn't ask the select board to spend on the project. If we hit our target and get where we need to be.
Couldn't we accomplish the same thing where, my recollection is correct, what comes in tree growth goes into that open fund, correct?
When property comes out of tree growth, the penalty goes into our open space fund, correct?
So we're projecting 8,000 this year. You've got 5,000 that you still have, at the end of this year, you'll still have there. If you just, instead of having it as a budget there, if you just authorize the use of that, no?
That 8,000 is not tree growth penalty, that's tree growth reimbursement, which is a totally different animal.
How much do we see, what's our projection on tree growth penalty?
We don't have anything in sight that I'm aware of.
But there's still around $5,000 though in that account.
There's a little over 5,000 that's still there.
Joe? Since there's fundraising ongoing and you don't know yet whether or not you're going to meet your goal, would one way to handle it be that you could come back, if the selectmen committed to consider an appropriation from the contingency, come back later on and say, we're not going to make it, or we're going to need that $10,000, and then come from the contingency at a later date?
Yeah.
If the selectmen committed to entertain that discussion and.
Well, if you could do that, or you could do that as a dual thing. You could still authorize at the town meeting the release of the 5,800, which is there, if it were needed, and then you'd only be looking at 4,200 that you'd need to come out of contingency.
Where's the 58 is from?
58 is
What you have in
still
your open fund balance.
Still have available.
After covering the Tenny River and.
After Tenny River and the 30,000, after the 45,000.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
So, at the end of the day, the commitment is still there, at the 10K level, but it's not, it's off, it's essentially.
I think that would probably meet our goals. Our plan was to basically zero out the open space fund with this project. It's been a long run. Presumably it would get restocked at some future date if there's more tree growth coming out. But those are funds that have been sitting there for some time.
That's what they're there for.
That's what they're there for. Yeah.
But yeah, John, the selectmen made a big contribution last year of $50,000, and to come back a year later and say, oh, can you give us 10,000 more? That's just kinda hard.
Well, and I appreciate all of you doing the work you're doing here tonight, and Joe in particular, you driving a lot of it to find money, and I appreciate it now more than I ever did when I get my tax bill. So I've changed over the year.
That's what kids in college will do to you, John.
Yeah, I mean, I'm moving right pretty quick.
You're looking for money too, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm looking for money. But I think, again, appreciate the 50,000 by all means from the town of Raymond, and would add that 35 of that, I believe we carried for years in the open space fund. But you guys came through with the tree growth money to help Tenny happen at 15,000, and so that was a bright idea and much appreciated also. So I kind of look at the 35 as being money that we've had in the pot all these years, and I hear you on coming back to the bank kind of early, but it's more of a contingency level. We got some crackerjack folks on the fundraising committee for the Pismere Mountain project, and I've got a pretty good faith and feeling that it's going to reach its targets. And
You got 8 months to work on it.
we got 8 months to go, and there's going to be 2 waves of campaign. Is that Peter?
Yeah, it is.
Hi, Peter.
Okay. On a sheet which is entitled, new glasses, Raymond Community Forest Project budget, there is a little hard to count, but 6 to 9 different entities that are considered providing income to the project. Are any of those other entities putting up any funds that might possibly be needed, other than asking the town of Raymond?
So on the income side, all those folks on the income side are certainly pledging funds, starting with Hancock.
Right, but you've asked for a possible additional 10 here.
Right.
That you may or may not need. Are any of these other entities providing possible money?
Possible additional money?
Yes.
Possible additional money? Again, I guess, Peter, the answer to that would be that hopefully the private fundraising, the 127, would come through, in which case we wouldn't need this 10 or any other 10. And that's where if we fall short on the private fundraising, then the 2 places that might have some potential is the anonymous foundation that's a Loon Echo connection. They've acted on some of these other Lake Region projects, such as the Hackers Hill and the Pearly Forest over in Denmark. And so I don't really have a sense of what that is. My guess is that we'd squeeze the grape pretty hard, and if we started seeing, and I would expect that we'd report back here as probably midsummer to let you know where we are. That there.
Have you done a door-to-door campaign around that area yet?
There's been some of the folks have done door-to-door. We did a pretty aggressive phone survey, phone canvassing, and just write down the property list. For the way it worked was we started with the abutters because we felt they had probably the biggest interest in this project, and we worked out radially from the project with the abutters. What you'll see this spring is a expansion of that radius to the Crescent Lake watershed, and then blanketing the whole town of Raymond. So the folks that are working the campaign have been into the database for the addresses, and we've been reasonably sophisticated about approaching the folks that are close first, and then eventually the whole town, because it really is an incredible asset that the town will have. And for anyone who hasn't been up there yet, I don't blame you this winter. It's kind of hard to get up there, but It's a wonderful trip. The snow machine track is well established from Raymond Hill, from Mountain Road. Both times I've been up there this winter, a machine has come up. We've been there and enjoyed the sunset. That's the story with the Raymond Community Forest. And if what I'm hearing, go ahead, Peter.
But just to finish up on my question, it sounds like the answer to my question is essentially no. No one else has pledged any possible funds beyond what is in your budget. So
That's correct.
You've only asked the town of Raymond to make up what might be needed.
That's right.
Okay.
And then, in closing, I think for what is a $600,000 property, if our contribution from the town of Raymond ends up being $60,000, pretty hard to beat 10 cents on a dollar for a piece of property like that would be a resource for recreation for those who live in Raymond and outside of Raymond, and for the, I won't say the rest of time, but for the foreseeable future.
Thank you.
Is everyone okay with taking that $10,000 out and wait until fall? Yep.
So just to summarize, we're saying that we still have 55 or so in the kitty, and we're establishing an agreement here that we'd be able to bump that up by
4,500.
You guys are good at math. Yeah, 4,500 to get to 10.
Yep.
That'd be great. That'd be wonderful. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. So let's take 10,000 out. All right. John,
Do you want to jump on the bus? Well,
yeah,
throw me under.
You might be the only one that jumps on that bus, so why don't you tell us about it?
The magic bus. The bus is...
Magic bus?
The magic bus. This bus is wonderful. This is a go. I think the key point for you folks tonight is considering the request, which I think was initially $5,000, along with our neighbors in the Lake region. And as far as I know from Greater Portland Council of Governments, all the other towns, the other 5 towns, Wyndham, Raymond, Casco, Naples, now out to Bridgeton, are planning to budget $10,000. That's
the key word.
Planning to budget. Planning to budget. That's how the GP-COG folks have explained it to me.
10,000.
10,000. I mean, it was. They needed to get $48,000 out of 5 towns. Came out to $9,600 each, round numbers. And I had, in response to that, I put together a sheet. I think I sent it in to Don and Danielle from the bus that scaled the contribution to ridership, with Wyndham heavy, Naples is heavy. Portland, Westbrook are out because they already make a contribution to RTP to help float it with the other transportation that happens in town. And that worked out with Wyndham at about 13K and Casco at the other end, the small end, at about 4, and it had us at about 7. And Bridgeton was going to be around 9 or so. We didn't have numbers for them because they're just going to start that new ride out there. But that obviously would be a hard, that would take some time and negotiation with all the other towns. And so I think RTP's position, let's just keep it simple. Everyone go up for $9,600 each, and let's roll that proposal. I think that's probably the most practical way to go. I got some fresh ridership data that shows growth in ridership for the full year, January, February, March through the 20th. I corrected that number. And I'll share those. They're on my machine over there. But that's showing a 17 to 30% increase in ridership. It's still underutilized.
Was that year over year, John?
That's year over year.
But what are the hard numbers on that, John? Are we going from 3 to 5?
Yeah.
Or, what is that number?
So that number right now is, there's about, on average, when I ride it, there's anywhere between 3 and 5 people on the bus in the morning, and coming home, it's 4 to 7 on average. And like I say, that's grown from a year ago on the order of 17 to 30% plus. But I think the important point is that this was in the comp plan as a goal and a target for us a decade and a half ago now, almost. 11 years ago, 2004 comp plan, public transportation. There were folks working on that bus for the last 5 years, from GPCOG, RTP, Maine DOT, towns involved in the discussion. I think the analysis of dollars per ride, that's a worthy one to do, but it's got to go deeper than that. And if I tried to extract some economy, what kind of economy comes out of that? The fact is there's 700 folks a month in the summer getting off that bus, getting on that bus. That drops to 300 or 400, in the off season.
A month.
A month. So and the people that are riding it are going to work, they're going to the hospital, they're visiting their friends, they're going to school. Those are the big categories. And it's a huge connection from our relatively remote town of Raymond, Maine, with the urban economic engine of Portland, Maine. And I mean, I can say that from my own experience, having spent 2 decades as a sole proprietor here, and having not entirely gone around the bend, working for myself, had a great run, but connecting with the city and all the resources in there is now extremely easy twice a day, in the morning and twice a day at the end of the day. I think it's clear the data is growing. It's going to take time, and I put the question to RTP on the way in this week, and I got some data back just tonight about. I think Peter might have asked, what's the lookout here? What's the vision for a couple of years out? Are we going to now have to have a $20,000 bill? A good question, a great question. And so I put that to them, and the response was that the current thing we're trying to budget for is June 15 through June 16, right? July 1, 2015 through June of 2016. That's the 10,000 we're talking about. And RTP is good for the most of that. They've got 33,000 in federal money. They've got 15,000 of fare box money that we're each putting in $3 a ride, $2.50 or $3. The next year around, the federal money, may or may not be there, and I think that there's a potential that the numbers would change. And so I put the same question to the folks at GPCOG, what do you got in your grant hopper to help this thing along in the future years, not this coming year? And they had some ideas. There was no big silver bullet. But I think in the spirit of the comprehensive plan, what this town has expressed in the past, the clear benefits that the bus provides and the neighboring support of our fellow towns, that this is a great thing to support, and that we ought to go for it, and we ought to do that for this year, and we ought to look at it again a year from now, because we'll have a better sense of what the federal rural funding DOT money is going to be. If that shrinks from 33K to 5K, then it's another ball game. But let's see where we are with ridership. I expect we'd have some more fare box money. But
what have we given in the past, though? Have we given anything?
Not to the bus. This year, this from December 2013 through June of 2015, it's been a free ride for all 5 towns for the bus. They covered it with grant funding they got. They bought it with federal money, $200,000 bus. And I think you guys make a contribution to RTP for other functions on them. No?
Not anymore.
No, not anymore. Okay. So
are there questions for John? Peter?
One more, the price, the cost that we've seen come back, I've seen come back in answers to my question is $109,000 a year, plus the value added, which is essentially some other value, I hope funds provided by some government agency, unnamed apparently. Now that makes it something above, I think it was 109 plus 61,000. And that cost, I would think, would grow. Everything is costing more. So it would seem to me that it wouldn't be long before this 5,000 that was put in here by the Conservation Commission is suddenly going to be 20,000 and working upwards from that. And that becomes real money after a while. And it seems like now is the time to face up to an idea that may or may not be a good one.
Well, I think, Peter, like I said, my recommendation would be to meet the opportunity that our neighboring towns are facing up to, preferably at the amount of $10,000. And if that wants to be a $5,000 commitment and a $5,000 vote at town meeting, that's a fine way to go, perhaps also. But I think giving the bus a good shake, the feds, the state agencies have put their money down where their mouth is in making this public transportation a reality, which was a goal in our plan. I trust it was in a number of our neighboring town plans. And it's a resource that is still underutilized, and I think we'll be in a different place a year from now. And if we're still 4 or 5 of us bobbing down Route 302, and you know.
But John, the question becomes, should it be up to the entire town of Raymond to pay $5,000 that is originally asked for 4 or 5 people to go up and down 302?
And my answer to that would be absolutely, because it buys them a cost-effective and time-effective way to get to Portland and back.
But they're not using it, John.
That's their choice. I mean, there's a lot of resources in town that we pay taxes for that we choose not to use, and your life, anyone's life, can usually get better if you do tap into those services that the town provides, blanket-wide, town-wide. This is a huge community enhancement in my mind, and I think from all the folks that I've spoken to that have ridden it. Come for a ride. That's what we got to do. We got to have a VIP bus day.
All the selectmen and budget finance on there, we can fill it.
Get
Marshall?
2 questions, John. When did this first start, this Lake Region bus?
First run was in November, right after Thanksgiving, 2013.
Okay, so in a year and a half, we've gone from 0 to 7 riders, is that?
Fair to say.
Who is actually asking for the money? Is it Lake Region Bus? Is it the conversation?
Conversation.
Thank you.
That's it.
I just had 3
We knew what you meant. We knew what you meant.
Or is it the RTP?
Our RTP is really requesting it, and I made an initial request in support of that because I didn't know if it was going to get on the menu or not. Did you have something to say, Daniel?
I was just wondering, I didn't know if this qualified as a TIF expense, that we could put this on for the first year, and if ridership doesn't improve, then we just cut it completely out of the budget. So it'd technically be budget neutral, but still allow the opportunity for this program to grow for those who do utilize it.
Would it qualify?
It dances the line along with the technology stuff, whether there is a community development portion of TIF, so by virtue of that, it probably would. As much as a sidewalk does, and the sidewalk was clearly delineated in there as an allowable item under there, as was fireworks for Founder's Day. So, there's things that you know, you wonder why they're there, but they're there, but it, you know, clearly one of the items under the TIF was community development, so by virtue of that, it should qualify.
So,
That's as clear as a commitment as I can get without.
you know what, on any TIF project, you just throw it in there until they tell you you can't have it. That's the way it works. So, are we okay with moving the 5,000 to the TIF?
Not yet.
All right, yeah.
Just while we're on this, every year TIF bothers me. I obviously don't completely understand it, if I understand it at all. The TIF dollar still ends up in the tax rate.
Yes or no?
Yeah, that's what I was
The
about to
town
say.
doesn't get its money many other ways other than through the taxes, right? But if it goes into the tax rate, what's the difference between putting it there or leaving it under community development?
Because
I think it's
State
administrative.
reimbursement.
Because the way the TIF works is the town keeps the differential between that sequestered rate that was established for those properties and its now assessed rate. That money is used in the TIF, so it's not in the regular budget. So when you're establishing the mill rate, that's not in there.
Yeah, you pull out the 213,000, whatever's in there.
So you're not gonna bill me for that?
No.
Okay.
Unless you
Now, what happens is the person, whoever's property is in the TIF, they're not seeing that differential. They're seeing a tax bill that's at whatever the mill rate is. But what stays here is the differential between its sequestered rate and its actual rate.
Now you know all about TIFs, right?
I'm right where I was.
How does that affect LU1, the TIF?
Comes out.
That
doesn't it?
comes
Comes out.
So,
I understand
so
that.
that's one way to get you close to LU1 and.
Deb?
This 5,000, does that include basically like the liability for the people on the bus too? And
No, that comes from.
That comes from
RTP.
RTP.
They have their own insurance.
It's part of their overall budget.
This is just handing them a pot of money, Deb. That's all this is. It goes, here you go, RTP. Here's $5,000.
And John's not even gonna respond.
Yeah. That's what you're doing. You're giving them the money to run this bus up and down 302, which
For
I
how
have
many
passed many
people?
times with 0 people on it. that
I'll
I've
take the
passed.
job.
Yeah, you don't have to talk to anyone at that point then.
For drivers.
That's an easy $5,000, I'll take it.
Don't have to kill the kids, just quiet down.
I'm voting it in.
Brian?
You know, one way to look at this is less as government and more as a new business startup. There are very, very few business startups that tend or plan to go revenue neutral or profit in year 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And one can argue whether or not we should look at it that way or not, but I do think that's essentially what this is. This seems to me to be, because of the money that was initially put in by the federal government and the like, kind of a, if not a one-time shot, probably close to it. I don't think we're going to see the kind of critical mass to do this again. I do think that there needs to be additional work done in terms of getting the ridership up. I have used it occasionally, and I found it to be, I mean, there's no way you can get into Portland for $3. I mean, I don't care if you're on a motorcycle, you can hardly do it. So it's an unbelievably good deal. I do think that as we think about Raymond development and what the Raymond Revitalization Committee is doing, I would suggest that if we decide we want to do this, that there should be some kind of linkage to see what could be done about the Raymond Revitalization Committee linking to this to try to get ridership out so that we would actually be getting people not only from Raymond into Portland, but people from Portland coming out to Raymond utilizing our services and our businesses. I think that's a huge opportunity in the summer and one that I don't think is necessarily being leveraged. But like I think the rest of my colleagues up here, I think there's a limited amount of capacity we have for spending money on this. And if it's really going to be 2 or 3 people, you know, rocking down 302, it makes no sense whatsoever. You can't justify it. So, John, I don't know if you're the right guy to communicate back, but if we were to go forward with this, I think it needs to be with two kind of stipulations. One is that they understand this is their year to prove trajectory, if not to a break even, to a trajectory where the town sees the value. It's currently not seeing it. And number two, that GPCOG the RTP, well, with GPCOG, think about how, in addition to putting the bus schedule in the paper, which clearly isn't working enough, well, how else are they going to market this in a way? And then thirdly, what can we as a town do to help market it as well, so that we can get the word out? I do think that if it's part of our business, our comprehensive plan, we should give it a shot.
I mean, there's not one form of public transportation that is not subsidized by government. Not one, whether it's a Downeaster or Amtrak. They're all subsidized. The question is, how much does Raymond want to subsidize this bus?
Right.
Another question is, I think.
Well,
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I just wanted to comment on Brian's revitalization committee idea. I think it's very good, and I think you ought to come to a meeting and make that pitch. No, I'm not kidding. I mean that sincerely.
I'll be at the next one then.
Good. Don?
I just wanted to say that when anything like this is first established, if you look at any of these, transportation services, John's point about, more time, another year, I think that's a fair point, and that, it's probably not going to exponentially expand in 1 year, but it seems like it's moving in the right direction. But, if it's a 3 or 4 person increase, ridership next year, then maybe you say it's possibly too slow. It's not something that, looks like it's going to work on a timeline that's realistic for the Lake Region towns, or this Lake Region town. But every one of these systems that is started up takes some time to become, a fixture and to become something that people will utilize. And so I just wanted to comment on that. It doesn't instantly happen overnight, become all of a sudden something they're using.
So I don't want people going home with the image of 4 people on the bus. I mean, that's true on a dark Friday in Raymond, but total ridership, 5,300 folks rode the bus in 2014.
How many runs do they do?
They do 2 in the morning,
Yep.
6:40 and 9:10 out of Sunset Variety, and then there's 2 in the afternoon. They get back here at 6:15 and 8:30.
So that's 420 a month divided by 30, going over 4 runs.
3 or 400 a month is about where we are right now.
Right. Right. That's a lot of ridership for 4 runs.
So
Those are odd hours too.
Yeah.
the hours actually are they work great
Yeah.
because they get you in
They're
ahead
later.
of the rush hour,
Right.
and they get you home. You leave right after the burst out of Portland. So there's traffic, but they've worked it to optimize around that.
You don't run weekends, do you?
Doesn't run weekends.
No.
Doesn't run weekends.
And
All right.
make one
ahead.
last question.
Yeah.
Rick. How far do you have to drive to get to Sunset?
I drive from Dryad Woods Road, 4.5 miles to Sunset Variety. Every now and then I pick up a woman that gets off the bus and I give her a ride right to here, right nearby here, elderly woman. So sometimes I carpool down there. Other folks are closer, and they've surveyed that. They just did a new survey. They'll be sharing that shortly. Most folks are walking to the bus, or certainly at the other end at Elm Street at the Pole Station, they're walking to work there. If it's Wyndham and you're going to use that economy, it's
Where's the bus stop in Wyndham?
the bus stop's right near Marshall's, right outside Marshall's, Hannaford. So, and that's a convenient thing too. Pop into Wyndham, park there, get the bus, go to town, come back, go shopping afterwards.
And then walk home?
And then, no, I couldn't drive my car, F1, and then drive home, yes.
Everybody okay with moving that 5,000 to the TIF?
No,
No?
I think we should move it off.
Completely zero it out?
I agree with that.
I think we ought to give it another year.
I think another year is appropriate. I don't want to sound altruistic, but the fact is, these are the things that are necessary for economic development.
Well, in defense of my no, I did some financing for Amtrak, Conrail, and Penn's, and all that stuff when I was in Connecticut, and like Joe said, they never make money. So once we're in bed, we're in bed. So it's not this year, it's the next 15 years. And that's the part that bothers me. That's why I would say no now.
But we're not making that commitment going down the road.
Right, to me, it's a
It's a
one-year
one-year
commitment.
commitment.
I'm willing to give it one more year. I'm pretty much a zero guy on this thing, because to me, it's a lot of money to be subsidizing this thing for 3 or 4 people. But I'm willing to give it one more shot, only if we move it to the TIF though, and actually get some savings out of it.
Okay. Can we also make it contingent upon the other towns agreeing to?
Yeah, I'm gonna be
cover-
really surprised if Bridgeton comes up with $10,000. I'll be shocked.
Bridgeton already has, Bridgeton, Naples, and Wyndham have already actually committed that money.
It's in their budget.
Yes, because Bridgeton, the people actually petitioned for it, so the council had no choice but to react. Naples has a legendary fund, and Wyndham took it out of, budgetary funds, so it's just us and
Casco?
Casco, and Casco did put the full amount into their budget.
I say we do it, give it a year.
Yep. 5,000 into the TIF.
Yep.
So we're down to 46,651 in the community development account. All right, fire department EMS.
Questions?
Go right ahead.
Okay, the general maintenance for the building, you're going up from, oh my gosh, general maintenance, right. I guess my thing is, I'd like to see that line dropped, because looking at this, what your description is general maintenance for the buildings, electrical, building repairs, paint, floor waxing. I do a daycare in my home, and you guys have adults that are down there, so it's not like the whole building's used all the time. So can we kind of like maybe cut back on what the building repairs are and maybe do it like every other year as far as upkeep, that type of thing?
One of the things that you're seeing in there for an increase is the fire alarm system at District 2, so that we're actually in compliance with our own fire ordinance. That is one of the items that's in that line. As far as the building use and deferring maintenance and things like that, I have a philosophy that it's never good to defer maintenance, because if it costs $100 today, it will be $200 tomorrow. Kind of the philosophy that I've worked by. Of course, we're not just throwing money at things for the sake of throwing money at things. If it is broken, obviously, then we're concerned with it. We have a myriad of issues at our buildings that we're always keeping up with. Fortunately, we're, I feel, ahead of the curve with some of these projects, like the lighting project and such. Over the years, we've done very well at trying to control our costs, and we've done so in our electrical service bills, as you've seen. Looking at the budget, when I started in 2003, we had a $1,200 a month bill for electricity. We're about there now. We're a little above, some months a little below. I think last month was one of the first that we actually went well above, and the rate increases are affecting us. So everything we've done is real out of this line item really is to help control our costs. We do wax our own floors. Our guys strip those floors and wax them. We have buffers. We maintain the buffer. We have to buy the wax. We have to buy the stripper. It's just part of what our guys do.
But how often do you do that? I mean, it's
It
something
depends
that,
on when it needs it, but a big piece gets done annually. We have so many floors in that building.
Right.
The tile, the VCT tile floors, they just need to be waxed. The restrooms particularly, stuff that gets wet, things like the decon room. The decon room will get waxed and stripped and waxed 3 times a year easily. It's just all the stuff that we track in there, and we've really got to, as you can tell by the name, it's a decontamination room, so we actually have to decontaminate the services or the parts of the room as well as the equipment that we bring in there. It covers, like you said, paint and things like that. We go through, and before this money was made available to us to put LED lighting in, we were spending thousands of dollars a year in light ballasts and light bulbs and repairs on things like that. So that may that will be controlled. I just don't know how much. I know that we took some money out of our electrical line, assuming that we're going to save a fairly large amount. We're hoping we don't hit demand in that line, and I know that's not what we're discussing right this second, but I'm just trying to paint that big picture. You know, we're trying to control costs across the boards with our budgets. But we do have some maintenance issues. And you know, as we've talked about roofing and things like that, just as a side note, I came in the other day after the big wind and was picking up shingles out of our driveway. So we've got some major issues going on that we're gonna have to take care of these things. Again, I just really don't like to defer maintenance. I don't do it at my house because it will cost me twice as much in the end, and I know that. So I'd rather spend $1 today than $2 tomorrow.
We should have done that when we built the building.
100%.
That building is the
Yep.
biggest piece of crap we ever built, and we cut corners,
Yep.
and it's falling apart, and we're spending all this money maintaining it.
It's the difference in low bid, and really that's where we're at with it. It's, the bones are good, the base structure's good, but we've got to keep up with it, and I think it's definitely doable.
This is, just so we don't forget history, this was pointed out, you know, by the staff to the then committees, but what happened was the idea that we wanted to build this building, and we wanted to build it for a certain amount of money, and we accomplished that. And when there was a multi-$100,000 increment between this building and the next bid, that was the warning sign. We talked about things like we should have a metal roof, we should spend the money for that, we should have the masonry ledger and the masonry, you know, partial wall. We went through a whole list of things that we wanted to have, but the leaders at the time, the building committee, you know, and decision makers at the time were unwilling to do that. So we made a judgment to build it cheaper, which is a judgment that we often make. And as Bruce points out, that's sometimes a judgment that comes back to haunt you later. That said, I'm in agreement. You know, we have got a structurally sound and good building, but now you've got some retrofitting, and we've had some retrofitting we've had to do right along, which is, you know, something that could have been avoided, and I would have rather paid for it in you know, $02, $03 than $15, $16.
Well, and looking at that, I think just because of us trying to cut and having to cut is what it is saying, okay, you know, we've got to look at what is needed right away. I guess, and I sent this email out to you too regarding the radios. I really have a problem with people walking around with $1,100 radios if they're not on call. I really do. If there's any way that we can cut that.
I wish I could, and I know where you're going with it, and we've thought about systems that we could try to put in place to control, but the problem is when you're a call member department, they have to have a radio with them so they can hear the call.
But you guys have people on call at different times,
correct.
like weekends, that they sign up for it, that they can take the radios
But
and you sign them back in?
everybody really needs to have two-way communications with them when they're on a call, because your group might be operating on the other end of the building and have something bad happen, and each of those people needs to be able to communicate immediately with command, with dispatch, to let them know that. We do multiple calls at once, sometimes 3 and 4 deep at the same time, which means we're in different areas of town all the time.
Or a structure fire comes in and we have 20 members going
Yeah.
to it. And
Kind of-
everybody needs their radio. They can't drive to the station,
Yeah.
sign out a radio, and then drive to the structure fire.
Right. And to paint that picture, you know, you've got different levels on the incident scene, from command to accountability, man pool, health and safety, water supply, operations, vent groups, search groups. They all are operating independent of each other through command, and they all have to have immediate communications with command. I'd also like to add, you know, the $1,100 radio, it sounds like a lot of money, and I know you can't run down to Walmart and buy the 5-pack of family radios that we go hunting with and stuff, and consider them equal. They just don't work. And first, we're on definitive frequencies that are very well tuned, and we have to have a multitude of frequencies to operate, as I kind of just said. But the $1,100, I wouldn't let that scare me too much. Auburn uses $4,000 portable radios. Lewiston uses 3s. You know,
I know.
Poland's 15. We're actually in the lower end of a good professional grade rated radio. And again, I throw it out. We don't like to just spend money for the sake of spending money, but we want to buy product that will last and will hold up. What we found with these radios versus some of them that we bought in the past is that these ones seem to be really holding up and doing the job well. Some of the stuff we bought in the past is, you know, $300-400 unit, and we're replacing it in 1.5 years because it's falling apart.
On the other thing is, I know I questioned you guys on the ambulance thing too.
Yeah.
Let me understand this. Okay, so you guys are on a 4-year rotation of every 4 years on your ambulance.
We are.
CIP?
Oh, do you want me to wait to CIP?
No, go right ahead.
Right. So on these ambulances, we sell them to somebody else that they use in another town as an ambulance, correct? Because, well, wait, let me finish, just so you get the whole question to it. I guess I'm looking at this, instead of doing this 4-year plan, and we're paying $126,000 for the 4-year plan, but if we don't do the 4-year plan, then we pay $180,000. I guess you have normal maintenance that you have to do on a vehicle. My husband's a diesel mechanic, so you've got the tires you gotta repair, you gotta do the oil changes, all the different stuff. And the way vehicles are these days, they're lasting a lot longer than 4 years. So I guess I'm looking to say, can we take that money and keep the vehicles for 6 years and make it longer that way and still have that extended warranty on it? So we're not rotating the new vehicles out, because we're not getting really any cash for those things when we send them out.
No, and at the 10-year, this is the reason why we went into the regional consortium, if you will, to purchase. One, it was regional and was in vogue, but two, is the thought of trying to save some money, get a better bang for the buck. So warranties, to cover that, to buy an extended warranty on an emergency vehicle is next to impossible because of the service that they go through. We haven't had a whole lot of luck with going past that's normal every day, 4-year or 3-year, whatever it is, for a warranty on the vehicle itself. The bodies that are made, that's something we could exercise. They come with a steep price usually, though. But see, because the Ford chassis goes then to PL Custom or Autotronics or whoever the manufacturer is, and the body is then built. So you get built-in redundant electrical, heating, cooling. Paint a picture. It's an emergency room on wheels.
Right.
You know, it does everything that they can do in the emergency room, minus having a doctor there. So you've got all these redundant and backup electrical systems for safety, and you've got all the equipment that's running. So it's computerized galore. There's a lot of things that we get into when we're dealing with maintenance, multiplex wiring systems. And I know Kathy's itching to get up because she has the actual data on it with her. So just part of what I touch upon and why I say it's so important to come up with a plan or fund a plan for maintenance, because when something goes down, like a inverter goes down, I mean, you're looking at a charger inverter that runs the defibrillators, the suction units, the medication pumps, and these things are thousands of dollars. Not uncommon to have them go down. Usually they last 3, 4, 5 years. It's after that 5-year point that we really start seeing huge maintenance costs in our ambulances. Tires, oil, we know that. We get that all the time. It doesn't matter if the truck's 20 years old or 2 days old. We're going to end up dealing with tires, and one of the new ambulances popped a tire a week or 2 ago. So it happens, and we know that. One of the things we did when we ran the numbers from these different programs is we really looked at, if we run a 4-year program or a 3-year or a 6-year or what have you, what is the cost, and what's the cost breakdown per year just on the truck? Let's take all the maintenance stuff out. We know that maintenance, once a truck hits 5 years old, 5 years of age, generally in the ambulance category is anywhere between $5,000 and $7,000 a year, sometimes more. It's a fairly steep cost. What we found when we ran, and Kathy's been crunching numbers, et cetera, and working galore, but if you want to cover this part, you can. I think you'll find it interesting. I did.
So the chief asked me to do some of these numbers on the ambulance. And right now, at an ambulance costing us $160,000, which is our current Rescue 2, with 4 years, not including any maintenance in here because it's under contract, other than routine maintenance, and we kept it the same, cost us $40,000 a year. Our Rescue 1, we purchased just under $170,000, so that's $42,000 a year for 4 years. But when we do with the replacement costs, and it cost us $120,000 per ambulance with this contract that we're in the bid for 4 years, it cost us $30,000 a year for that ambulance. So I'm going to take that same ambulance that we're going to purchase for $180,000 because we're not getting the discount on it, keep it for 6 years, add $10,000 in mileage, that's 2 years at $5,000 each, over the 4th year when the contract runs out for maintenance. That cost us almost $32,000. So instead of $30,000 a year, it's $31,000 a year if you keep it for 6 years. I also did the same thing for 8 years, and I can send the spreadsheet to the town manager to send out to all of you guys. If you keep it for 8 years, the cost does now go down to $25,000 a year versus a $30,000. But averaging your mileage in at 16,000 miles a year, you're talking about a primary ambulance, an emergency vehicle, with an 128,000 miles on it. Okay? NFPA standards say they try to keep them 75,000 at the top line, your emergency apparatus. 75,000 miles, and then you should really look at turning them in. So in the 4-year program, we get about 64,000 miles on an emergency vehicle. 6 years, 96,000. And 8 years, 128. And I think that speaks a lot because at 128,000 miles, you're in an ambulance. You can't be driving to Portland with an ambulance breaking down. And that's what we saw before when we kept our ambulance for so long, and a lot of the other towns do too. But I can send you this, but it's surprising because if we keep them for 6 years, it's $31,000 a year. If we do the 4-year program under the contract, it's costing us $30,000 a year. So that's an estimate, you know, basing it on the maintenance cost.
Okay.
Questions
Thank
on
you.
that?
No, I'm gonna digest it. Yeah.
We'll have Dawn send
One
this
thing I don't
out
wanna do is get into the presentations all over again.
No.
I
And
want,
I still have a couple questions. I mean, I'm just getting on certain points.
Yep.
I guess the other thing too is on salaries. Kathy mentioned that the people have left. You had, yeah, you have quite a few people that you had dropped down on salaries. So one, why are you not salary is what, but that's something that I don't think you can answer here, to be honest. And two is, I guess, why is that so high? And I think if I look back on the appropriations report, I think it was last year, you had 16,000 left over in your budget, I think, in payroll.
Why is so high, Teresa?
I'm sorry, what?
You said it's so high, I'm just trying to clarify what is so high.
The salaries, I think that's high because I thought you guys had dropped 27 people, I think, on your thing, and only so many are full-time.
But you still have to fill the
Correct.
shifts.
Yeah, we fill,
That's what I'm asking is what, yes.
real briefly, because I know time. This includes the wage increases and wage adjustments, $1 an hour per hour for the call members, the 2%, 1.4. We have 3 persons on call during the day on top of our staff. So we have 3 people making $2.50 an hour for a 12-hour shift. At night, that goes to 4 people. So $30 per night shift, per person, per shift, per day, per 12-hour shift. So that figures into, sorry.
You have 3 people full-time during the day?
No, 3 people on call as call members,
Okay.
without including the full-time staff.
Okay.
And those members make $2.50 an hour to be at home, sober, ready to respond, committed to the department. And at night, they're beating over, yeah.
least 5 now.
So,
I'm in the wrong business.
and then they bump up to call pay when the tone goes off. And when the tones go off is the part that we really can't predict. We've had years that we've gone, 2 years ago, our call volume is the same, but our hours per call was extremely high. So payroll gets impacted in adverse ways. One hurricane, one major forest fire and whatever, and we chew up a lot of money very quickly. Occasionally we get fairly lucky, and last year was one of those. I think that we got fairly lucky, and we had some money left at the end of the year, without a doubt. Unfortunately, it's such a loose thing, you can't predict it. I mean, you really can't.
Okay.
I make the adjustments according to what we have for wages and what we have for projected call volume and hours per call on averages.
Chief, I'm looking at your new wage structure that you're
Yes.
proposing here. I mean, we're talking a 20% increase for some people in the next 2 years on a per-hour basis.
Yes.
That's a huge hit.
Not when you're making $10
Yeah.
an hour though, Joe.
That's
I
really
get that.
where we're looking
I
at
get
it
that.
as.
But you have Great Current, Wyndham Current, they're gonna go up. So does that mean next year you're gonna come in and say, oh, I need actually more money? I mean, can't we do this in a more incremental fashion than a 20% increase?
We're just trying to get caught up to where we think we should be right now. We know that everybody's gonna always go up. It's inevitable, unfortunately. It's kind of the business that we're in. even at that point, we're not quite where some of these towns are on average, so.
Are you
for what
losing
they're
people
doing.
to these towns?
Yeah, we are actually. We got guys that are actually, rather than coming here and working a per diem shift here or taking a standby here, are going to Fry Island for $12 an hour.
$12 an hour.
To
yeah.
sit, and I don't have it in front of me, that's why I'm saying it, but
I'm looking at
to
your
sit on a
sheet right
cooler
here.
on a beach and have the rescue behind them and read a book. That's all that's expected. Thank you. So, yeah, 12 bucks an hour is pretty good deal for that. We're losing guys. For example, one of my lieutenants here works in Wyndham per diem, and he makes more money as a per diem, just a straight firefighter with no other responsibilities in Wyndham than he makes as a lieutenant in our town with major responsibilities. We're just trying to come up with something that's fairly equitable. And like I say, as you can see, there really aren't. We haven't kept up. Over the years, we've cut standby pay down to $250. We used to give $350, $450 on weekends. We've cut stipends out of the picture, and we actually froze and then cut our hourly wages at one restructured. So, kind of the things we've done over the past 8 years that really now don't affect us, do affect us adversely. They don't help us.
Go ahead, Deb.
Sorry.
I don't wanna pick on you by any means, but you keep saying about other towns.
Yes.
I'm not really sure, but does the chief down in Wyndham, is he salary or hourly?
He's salaried. At
Are the
about,
surrounding chiefs in every town hourly or salary?
most of them are salaried. Yeah. Wyndham's at like 70 something. The estimated total increase for our 15-16 budget for payroll for those folks that we're talking about making this major adjustment for is about $4,100. That's what we're talking about in totals, just to get them up there. That's this year's increase.
This vehicle maintenance for 31,000. What exactly is that on?
That would be on our fleet of vehicles, including 2 engines, 2 tankers, 2 pickups, chief's vehicle, the boats, and the 2 ambulances.
Oh, the boat.
Yeah.
Let's go to the boat.
Did you want anything else described under the maintenance?
That's maintenance, right, the boat?
It would come under that too, yes.
Okay. How often is this boat in the water?
Which boat are we talking?
The big one.
The big
one
one.
is in all summer in the water moored at Beach Road.
Goes in May 15th and comes out about October.
How often does it run? I mean, I know it's docked, but do you guys
Correct.
just use it when you get a call?
We train on it, the sheriffs use it. It goes out 2 or 3 times a week.
And it depends, I can't answer the calls if that's where you're going with it. I mean, 2-3 years ago, we had like 8 calls on the big lake within a month. 3 or 4 of those were drownings, recoveries, and work for the warden service. The next year, we might do 1.
Isn't it the
It's
warden
serious, I can't
service
tell
that
you
should
more
be
than that.
really taking care of this?
Well,
I don't know.
Cumberland County contributes something.
Cumberland County does contribute to our boat. The warden service is a separate entity, and when they get out onto the lake, they're out for patrol, and they've got 1 person. It's really difficult for them to effect the rescue or deal with the fire.
They pay for our winter,
Right, your storage
maintenance costs,
and they,
the maintenance costs.
maintenance, I understand
We
that.
have really very little maintenance costs on the boat.
Okay. Well,
Right?
you said you wanted to have it painted, that's all.
Painting is,
Yes.
really will be the big thing that we want to put in this year.
I'll take a
That's in
few
our
kids
capital.
over, they'll get it painted right up for you.
Chief, I just want to loop back for a moment to the building maintenance.
Yes.
38% increase, now a 28% increase. Is this the trajectory? Are you seeing this, the next year is going to be 30,000? And the reason I ask the question
I
is,
know.
are there things that can be done now that are going to keep that number under control?
We're hoping that what we've been doing has been keeping it under control. Kind of my point with the electrical that we've been doing ongoing. That's what we strive to do always. I think it was you and I that had the discussion of the rot that we had around our front entry door, and we had someone fix that, but when they stripped the rotten plywood off underneath the siding, the rot was about as high as I am up in the building. There was no insulation beside the door, that wide away from the door. We wondered why we were always cold in the hallway. These are typical of the things we find and how it's put together. So as we find those, because we're not going to dig for those things unless we know we have an issue, we correct them and like to correct them the right way.
And remind me about the roof. Is that in the CIP?
Yeah, we've got a plan for it in CIP, but it's for next year to replace with metal. We're doing work on it right now, just kind of patching things together, but as shingles come off, it's getting harder to put them back, and go through with glue and some nails and put them back together.
Okay. Thank you.
Nick?
Yes.
I just wanted, a minute ago, you said the payroll, go back to that. The,
Okay.
Was 4,000 increase,
That's
it's
for
21,000?
Just in
That's for the standby members.
the pay rate plan, yes, for the standby members, for the call members, if you will, yeah.
And I'd like to add to that, I'm okay with you paying these people some pretty good money, because I don't really want somebody that got fired from Walmart to come to my house when I need somebody, some help, so.
Right.
I'm all for that, and I don't really want to see people going to another town after you've trained them.
I don't know.
Staying with payroll, Bruce,
Yes.
these proposed increases, what benefits go with these increases?
Okay, if we're talking about the call members, there's no benefits attached to
Okay.
them at all. The 2% that goes with the union staff and the 1.4 with the rest of us, the full-time and the officer
Standard.
staff, the standard would apply.
Insurance.
We'd have, obviously, workers' comp impact, I believe,
Yeah, okay.
with that.
There's no benefit
nothing
packages.
extra, right?
No benefits.
No benefit package. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Joe,
Right.
well, Debbie, just one comment on the salary versus hourly rate that Chief Tucker gets. If you look at the compensation committee study, you'll see that we are paying our chief position measurably lower than surrounding towns. So I don't want people that are watching or even you to think that because he's on an hourly rate, somehow he's getting a better deal. I think it goes back to what our town manager said is, I don't know why you want it that way, chief, but it's fine by me.
Yeah.
So, just want to make sure that's clear, that he is at actually in comparable towns, he's at a
Well, I
much
just,
rate.
the only reason I brought it up is everybody seems to be salary, especially
Right.
when you become a chief.
Right. So
So I just don't, it's just confusing for me for someone to be paid hourly instead of salary
Yeah.
being
I agree.
You're absolutely
that
right.
higher
But we're benefiting.
position. I mean,
Go ahead.
It should be, you're absolutely right, it should be a salaried position. And I had that discussion, I've had that discussion over years with Bruce.
right.
But I'm looking at the overall, dollars we're paying with the, additional time that we pay him on an hour basis. And what Brian is telling you is on the money. If we go with a salary, I'm gonna recommend a higher salary than where you are with the hourly pay. Now, why he doesn't wanna change, I don't know. And this may surprise some folks too, but there's downward pressure every year on this budget. So if I got a guy who's saying, I'm happy, it's okay, even though I think it should be a salary position, and I do believe that, because of the responsibility involved, because of everything involved in being
Yeah.
chief, it should be a salary position. You're 100% right. But I think that if it was a salary position, I would recommend a salary higher than where he's at now.
Well, then he ought to go for it.
Well, so far, so far he hasn't
We'll talk
gone for it. And of course, I did convince Nathan on the same notion years ago, and how's that worked out for Nate?
There's your answer.
Now he works 24 hours.
There's your answer.
23.
All right, we all done with EMS?
Yep.
All right, let's move on. Animal control. Any questions on animal control? Right.
The only comment is on contract services. I was glad to hear that we're looking at doing something with other towns, and possibly looking at an alternative, because this seems to be a lot of money. I don't know how many dogs and cats we bring to the animal refuges, but I would think it would make our per rider costs in the bus pale in comparison. So.
We can put them on the bus. Coach can bus work.
Give a ride down to the shelter.
John will put them on a leash.
Don't ask me how I know this, but it's
$3 a ride, be cheaper.
Don't ask me how I know this, because I don't want to get into it, but it's $100 a cat to Westbrook.
Is that, yeah.
A cat?
Oh, don't even ask.
Don't ask.
Oh, no.
So we won't have them do the bus service, that much we're sure of.
Rather than $3?
Huh?
Rather than $3?
Wow. All right. Any other questions on animal control?
Have someone meet us at the other end.
Streetlights? Questions? Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Run them all down a
All
weekend.
right, Public Works,
Give me a second.
questions?
Just pick it up.
Anything on Public Works?
Just,
Bob?
Nathan,
Yes.
how's the process of interviewing and hiring a fourth public works?
He started Monday.
He started?
Yeah.
And his qualifications, you were looking for a highly skilled individual?
We picked kind of about the middle of the road.
Okay.
That's what we ended up doing.
I met him, it's really nice. He has to put up with these guys.
He worked for us 2 summers ago for part-time here, and we got a chance to work with him then, and I don't have anything but the utmost positive thoughts for him.
So the only thing on the salary line is gonna have to change if we all go to 2%.
Right.
And I don't know how much that adds.
Okay.
So maybe we'll figure it out.
Joe, quick question?
Yep.
Nathan, on most departments are showing a decline in the cost of fuels because of what I'm hearing to be something that's not a temporary, but there is really going to be now this shift that we've seen in the cost of fuels, and I'm noticing that on gas and diesel, you guys have held the line for the last 4 years, but I don't see a downside, a decline at all.
Well, our vehicles, we really don't see much change in the fuel mileage on the vehicles, and that's pretty much reflecting what we're burning for fuel.
Not the mileage, it's the cost of the fuel. that I'm seeing.
We've added some vehicles over the years, so that's probably why that hasn't dropped down. And we do prepare for a worse winter than, I budget for a bad winter every year, hope for the best.
Okay.
Didn't work this year.
Yeah, it didn't work out good this
2
year.
years in a row.
No, yes.
Hey, any other questions for Nathan?
It's gonna amount to about,
Thank you.
All right, solid waste, I think is pretty much what it is. We finally got rid of that MWAC debt service payment, finally.
How long would that one run
That was
for?
20 years, wasn't
20
it?
years. But now the question is, will they come up with a new debt requirement?
Oh yeah, then you see his leather, they're figuring out something.
What's amazing is there's a gap.
Yeah.
Usually there's another debt.
Piggyback it right on, yeah.
Right.
Couple more.
Any questions on debts, on the waste, solid waste? Yes, Brian.
Just a comment, one of the things that came, I don't know if you guys saw the thing on the information, by the way, Don, great from Eco Maine, about recycling levels, and it's a pretty clear correlation between motivating people through the use of bags as the only way to get the recycling rates up. I don't want to go there yet, but I do think that we probably at some point are going to have to think about this, because right now, as the tipping fees are going up, and they went up dramatically this year, the cost difference between recycling and waste is going to increase for the town. And our levels of recycling are pretty low. There's great information also that number goes lower in the summer when we have a lot of seasonal residents. I do think there's probably more that the town maybe could do, and Don, maybe I'll offer to sit down with you sometime and talk about, are there some ways, I know we don't have a committee anymore, but are there some ways that we can communicate to people so that we take out the lack of knowledge, the awareness factor as an issue, because I do think this is something that's just it's gonna get more and more expensive as we go.
Yeah, I mean, the problem you have with seasonal people though is they're up on the weekends. They can't deal with bringing recycling out and garbage out,
Exactly.
you know, it's,
So maybe there's a way for us to have a central point where they could drop off, or I don't know, but maybe.
you know, another container that's just for
Yeah,
recycling maybe.
Yeah.
We're actually concerned about the containers we have. We've seen it, as you may have noticed in the town office, a growth in containers. And so I'll let Nathan speak to it. I can see he's getting up, but that has gotten to be.
Did I rub you the wrong way there, Nate?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nate, go ahead.
More dumpsters in town, it's not gonna work. The trash at the town office, we've got 2 trash receptacles and 1 recycling. Most every week that's dumped as trash because it's all contaminated and they're overflowing. And as I think it was Joe pointed out, that the summer people that come up here, that's when our biggest problem hits, with the recycling and the trash. They don't wanna recycle, they barely wanna drag the trash out to the curb.
Got it.
So we have an issue. I mean, if we've talked about reducing the dumpsters back to a more historic level. We won't worry and wonder about what we're getting for pass-through waste, that's traveling from other towns. We believe we're getting some.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I used to confront people at the dumpster, which is a really fun thing to do, but I would do that and ask for, identification, this kind of stuff, or something.
Take my garbage.
And but
I see a new reality show, Don.
yeah, oh yeah. But it's but that's a real serious problem, and we make it very convenient. We have a very premium. You're absolutely right. A premium trash service. You use the word incentive. I think the word that I would use probably is maybe it's a bit of a disincentive if you have to pay per bag or something like that. But it's a financial hardship if you don't do it. And so these people in other towns who have, when they've adopted this thing, it has compelled them to do it. That would certainly help, but it would certainly be a big change from what we have now. We've always had this system. It's just growing in terms of the volume and the use, and I'm worried about the addition of more dumpsters. I think we ought to be actually going the other way and trying to find ways to use the roadside pickup.
Question is, when other towns start charging for those bags, how many bring them into the town office?
We're
This we don't know.
I think geographically located, we're not getting too much from like Wyndham's paper bag. Casco is not. Naples is not. I think what you're getting are the people, I dare say, this side of 121 in the Casco area that travel to Egypt Road to the Turnpike.
Yeah.
You're probably getting a couple out of Poland. But like Don said, sitting out there asking people for their IDs or where they're from is...
I have had more than a few people tear off and react violently, so I'm thinking we are getting...
Yeah, probably not a good thing to do that then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've stopped doing that.
Good idea. I want to read the paper about you.
Have garbage thrown at you.
Beat up by a garbage bag.
But anyway, the point is, though, I think that people will do what's convenient. It's not convenient to drive to a transfer station in the opposite direction.
Yep.
If you're going to work and you're coming by and you know there's a place you can drop it, you will.
Yeah. Unless you put cameras up there and somehow enforce it, I mean...
Well, the problem with that, we talked to the county about it, and good luck enforcing it.
Right, exactly. That's it. Yeah.
You're better off to try to control it right there, that way they're not throwing it out the window of their car, I guess.
Well, that's the other downside. If you restrict the dumpsters and because of the people who are here just seasonally and they have, they're here for a few days and they're gone on trash pickup day, you may end up with a roadside litter problem that's worse.
Well, you have quite a mess.
Oh, I know.
Already.
I mean, it's quite an ugly sight up there. So. All right, cemeteries. Any issues?
Yeah, they're all dead issues.
Nice one, Sam.
You're pretty smart.
All right, Parks and Recreation.
All right, I'm going to be the bad guy again. I have a real issue with the Raymond Rattler Snowmobile Group. They didn't come forward. They didn't give us any sense of what happens to those $1,600. I'd like to understand. I know they're also a social club, which is great, but I don't believe that town dollars should be spent on social activities for a club.
Most of that money is going to grooming the trails. That's where that money goes.
I mean, you know that for a fact?
I know that for a fact.
You've seen their budgets and the like?
No.
Because that's the
But
part
I've
I
seen
don't
them
know.
out there on the trails.
They're doing it, yeah.
All right. I mean, I have no idea about what they're doing with that money.
They're grooming snowmobile trails is what they do with it.
This is the second year that they haven't come forward, too.
You know what? They never used to come forward.
Actually, they did.
Way back when.
Well, going back 4 years ago.
Lenny Wood?
Yep.
Or was it Larry? It was Larry. That was
I think
a while ago.
I think both things are true. I think that the accountability has been not what it should be, as Brian points out, lax. But and I made this point at an earlier meeting, having been out there quite a bit myself this past season, I see them grooming, I see them working on it, and I see a range of people, not only snowmobilers, but other outdoor, winter, recreational, and people enjoying the trail. So I think both things are true. They haven't been accountable, but they have been taking care of the trails. So I don't know.
Have they picked up their money this year?
No.
Yeah, I looked at the revenue report and they still haven't picked it up.
So clearly
Yeah,
they're in
season's
need of
almost
it.
over.
I mean, we're done. We're done with gun grooming trails at this point, so this goes back to my point.
Right. I'd like to second what Brian said, that they should be doing something. We should see where the money goes if we're going to give it to them. I think everybody else in the whole budget is responsibly reporting. They haven't been here to get it. They likely would groom the trails if we didn't give them a penny. They're very enthusiastic group.
Yep.
So I would think we should cut that back to the 800 we gave them last year, and squeeze the purse strings a little bit until they ante up to the bar.
Well, why don't we just carry over the $800 that they have in the account right now and zero that 1,600 right out?
I'll second that.
Good.
Can we do that?
Yeah,
sure.
you gotta make
Didn't we-
you have to put it in the budget itself that you're gonna make it a carryover.
Oh, I was gonna
What?
say, because didn't we vote that last year for the
They have
800 already?
until June 30th. to
Right.
take it out.
Right.
The winter's over.
They're gonna
They
be
don't
knocking
gonna
on
be
your
grooming
door
anymore.
tomorrow, you know
Yeah,
that.
they will now, yeah.
I do want to say that if there's somebody from the Snowmobile Club listening, I would be very interested in finding out. And if really the number we should be giving you is $2,000, I'm open to that as well. But I just really feel like there's I am lacking an understanding of exactly how that money gets allocated.
Well, they used to get every money for
Yeah, that
every
makes-
excise
that
tax
makes no
on
sense, yeah.
snowmobiles.
Because if you want to use that approach, then everybody who all the money that we get with from car taxes should go to
To roads.
the
Roads,
roads.
and
That's what it was meant for.
But it's not a 1-to-1 ratio.
But it was supposed to be, actually.
Okay, so all the incremental dollars that people that live on lakes should go to the lakes? I mean, what's the clarity on that? That's not the way governments take in revenue and allocate expenses.
Well, let me ask you this, they come up there and they pay their taxes to you guys, right? So these guys have to do the books on it, they have to keep track of it, they have to give out all the registrations, but they don't get anything for it because all that money goes back into the snowmobile.
No.
So there should be some kind of fee for them,
They
for
do.
the town.
They get a
The
dollar
town gets the town
Yeah.
gets the town fee
$1?
per
for
registration.
Oh, okay.
The issue here to me is,
Yeah, really.
the issue is accountability, and I find myself surprisingly agreeing with Brian on that one, because we've been at odds on it in the past. But I will tell you that, don't discount the fact that a lot of people use this resource, not just people who snowmobile, and yeah, the revenues come from the registrations, and we don't always do that with other intergovernmental funds. We don't take money for various from various sources and commit it to that same source. But historically in Maine, snowmobile registration revenues have been used for trail maintenance. That's what they're doing. I'm disappointed that they're not coming in, but they're not, and so I have to agree with Brian on that piece, that there's a lack of accountability. But it would be a shame for the trails and what we do have as an opportunity for people to get out in the winter to degrade because we didn't support them. So it's a dilemma.
And I'd 100% agree with that. I think it's an important and valuable thing that the trails get groomed, and that's why I wouldn't want to take it to zero, but maybe we take it to that 800 and just carry it over. I'd be open with either one.
You said there's 800 in there right now?
Yep.
So if we gave them 800, that'd be 16, so, you know what, it's a lot.
No, because they lose the 800 they didn't get this year.
Oh, they lose it?
They
No,
lose
they
it.
didn't come and ask for it.
Unless you vote to carry it over.
They can still come after it. They have until June to come get it.
Until June.
Right,
Right.
there's a
Right,
process.
but if they don't pick it up by June, it goes
Right.
back to the designated fund balance.
We'll find out if anybody is watching, so.
So are we zeroing it out this line and saying they can have the 800? Or are you making it 800 and leaving it at 800?
I don't think I would agree with zero and,
Okay.
800, I would flat it, I would flat it at the 800. and
Okay.
then-
So that brings you to 14,338. Agawam, do we still take that out of the Gulick fund or the Gulick fund to mow?
That's over on the revenues, yes.
We still do that, right?
Agawam and baseball.
Right.
So why are they in here for,
Because you have to have the,
You have to have the
expense.
offset.
all right,
You have to have the expense so you can take the
Sorry, Joe, one other question.
Yep.
On the contract services, and it's come up, and Nate, I apologize, because I know we talked about it, and my brain's dead on it. You know, there are cemeteries here, there's a number of places where the increases are significant.
Correct, well, they're not significant, they're brought up to, match, yeah, you've got a couple that are up
12%
there.
increase this year, roughly.
I couldn't tell you the total increase off the top of my head, it got broke out into the budget, and I don't have that. Cemeteries, there was a 25% increase in that, but we also added quite a bit of mowing to North Raymond Road.
Okay.
The ball field, we added a couple more mowings to the new contract, and there was a slight increase on that.
Okay.
And there was a slight increase in the roadside mowing.
So it's increased mowing, it's increased services, not an increase in the cost.
Correct. There is some increased cost in there, but most of it's
And that's
increased mowing.
contractual, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thanks. And did it go out to bid? Sorry.
No, I renegotiated for another 3-year extension with them. There was a huge gap between the bid process last time. We took the low bid. There was a huge gap between that and the next highest bid, or the next lowest bid rather. And it cost a fair amount of money to put this stuff out to bid, and it's quite time consuming. And I guess learned over the years, if you've got a good contractor and you can renegotiate, that's the quickest and easiest way.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
We went through a multi-stage bidding process last time around and really ratcheted this thing down, if that helps you understand it, and so, yeah.
Is the cemetery committee alive and well?
They're alive. They still meet.
I haven't heard from them. No, seriously, do they meet continually, or?
I would say yes. But,
As whenever they can.
Right, I don't think it's one of the more active committees, but I think they do, meet still,
You
yeah.
would think they would have a more active part in.
Active, dead, yeah. All right.
They, they, most of their work was done when the replotting and all that.
Right, and that was done last year. So.
Linda was here last year. Linda Alexander, she's on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was here last year for the budget season.
All right, library. Any questions? Peter?
Yes, there's a few things about this request that bother me. Although I do support having a library, I've even used it myself and find the staff very friendly and helpful. It's the 50% increase that gets me. The fire rescue department, which to me is the most important town department, which provides life-saving services, is requesting only a 3.4% increase, and Public Works only a 2% increase. The $20,000 requested amount appears to replace the $10,775, which is a so-called shortfall in the current fiscal year, and presumably the remainder would be spread, hopefully, over other prioritized expenses in the next fiscal year, which we are budgeting for now. It seems to me that if the expenses are now running $10,000 more than budgeted, there should be some cutbacks somewhere right now. If the $20,000 rate increase is, if the $20,000 request is granted, it will give the trustees courage to ask for another $20,000 next year, and it won't be long before $100,000 will be the goal. Most customers, which in this case are taxpayers, much prefer gradual increases spread over a period of time. The trustees should realize this. 2 years ago, in fiscal 13-14, an increase of $6,600 was given. Perhaps an increase of this amount would be more appropriate. I also hasten to point out that the so-called free services from the Main State Library were likely not free. My state taxes contributed to them. For that next, let me publicly thank the Library Board of Trustees for their prompt and detailed answers to my many questions. Thank you very much.
Questions, comments? Brian?
I think this is a good example of where the increase is dramatic. I think what I'm hearing from the library is that it is to catch up versus something that, as I understood the responses from the last time when I asked the question, is that this would not be something where this kind of increase would be a year-over-year kind of ongoing amount. My biggest concern was about private fundraising, because I'm a big fan and believer that the library is so successful because it engages the community. And I think in a town like Raymond, the need for the library is large, and I think the library's done a very, very good job. Their marketing expertise was very impressive in their PR to get people out to talk about it. But what I saw people coming forth was a very wide range of different kinds of people. Young people in this town with kids, older people from all different walks of life. I think it was very positive. My biggest concern was, what about the amount that they're going to do in terms of private fundraising, so which keeps the community engaged? And what I saw was an increase from 20,000 to 28,000 in this upcoming year, which I found to be a very positive thing. So, as much as it's a large increase, I would be in favor of making the increase.
Marsh?
Staying with your sentences, Brian.
Yeah.
When they went from 20,000 to 28,000, I asked the question, how are you going to get there? And I did not get what I thought would be a reasonable answer. They didn't come out with a plan on how they got there. And the reason I asked that question is for the last 4 years, they've decreased in their public fundraising. The other comment I want to make is that if you look at their website, their last sentence is the board is responsible for funding the library. And to me, the board is asking Daddy to fund the library. They're not being as aggressive as they could be. On the good side, they've got some nice programs. There's, they're visiting authors. And I hear some good things around town about it, but I can't support a 50% increase.
Now, here's one of the things going back many, many years ago, and I think some of us here have been here for a long time. That library board never wanted the town to take over control of that library. Never. That was going back to Eleanor Plummer when she was running the thing. She wanted very little from the town. And that was her commitment, saying, nope, we're not going to take a lot of town money to run this library. Now, we're being asked to fund over 50% of their budget. To me, at what point does the town take over the library? When you're funding more than 50% of anything, does it become a town thing at that point? And that's what I'm having a hard time with. And $20,000 is a 50% increase. 10,000 of it is for salaries, salary increases. I have a hard time with that too. If you want to pay your people more, maybe that's something you ought to raise, not the town. That's just so. From a historical perspective, I have a hard time saying that the town's going to pay more than 50% of the budget of the library. That's because if that's the case, then the selectmen ought to control that library and make it work. But I don't know. That's just my perspective on it. Do I think they deserve an increase? Yes. 50%? That's pretty steep.
Joe? I think too, not any one of us up here don't support the library. We do that. But I have to agree with what you're saying on that too, because I'm looking at this and I question the $120,000 that you guys have in a savings account too. And Danielle tried to explain it to me where you guys live off of the interest of it. So I guess what you're doing is, so you're living off the interest and you've already dipped into the principal of it.
Yes.
And you're coming and asking for $20,000 more. And I know you guys said a lot of programs that you want to offer to the town, but once again, it goes back to salaries and it goes back to provide reorganized fundraising efforts, which is another $2,000. So to me, you're pulling money from everywhere, but it's not, how do I say this? I think there's a lot of money coming from all avenues that's not being, I want to say, appropriated the right way, and that's just my view of what it is. And I fully support the library, I really do, but you're open, I think, what, 4 days a week? Is it 4 days
Yes,
now
4
instead of
days a
3?
week.
Yes.
And I think my concern is that's a huge jump to ask for. And like Joe says, it's not even, the town doesn't even, I want to say own it.
Well, if we continue to draw from our investment account, obviously, each year, in about 7 years, the library will close, because obviously it's a diminishing returns on that. Our operating budget is smaller than that of other towns, so obviously the salaries appear to be more of the budget. Let's see, what was the other concern?
So you guys are using then that interest on that?
We are using the interest on the investment.
So to me,
Yes.
it's almost like you gotta go back and look at the whole thing all over again and saying, okay, maybe we're overspending and look at what we have as far as the funds go and spend within that and still get the assistance that you need from us, but not the 20,000.
Well, running a
And-
library is not a linear.
Well, and I don't mean to sound harsh the way I'm coming off. I hope you understand that, because that's not what my means are. It's really not. I just look at this and go, wow. You know, when you've got 20,000 coming from us, you had a shortfall from last year, and then you're also dipping into that fund also. That's a lot of money.
Because over years before this, there was no increase that we asked for. We are finding that our patrons are demanding a great deal more. Everybody who comes through the door or calls on the phone has a totally different request from the next person or person that came before. So we have to always be looking for avenues to satisfy all the requests that we get in the library. And it costs money. The staff time is taken up with, for instance, when we have interlibrary loans, a great deal of time is spent on each item that's handled. It could be 20 to 30 minutes per item. And we have dozens of items coming in every week that need to be handled like that. That takes time. It takes money to do that.
But that isn't. I'm gonna just sit back and listen.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think, Alyssa, the hard part here is if we question anything in this budget, we come across as being anti-library. And I don't feel I am, and I don't think I've ever have been. But for the last 4 years, you've gotten a significant increase every year.
Right.
But like I said, my concern is, at what point does the town just take over running the library if we're contributing more than 50% of what your budget is?
If the library takes over, the town takes over the library, that limits our available resources in that we cannot seek grants. Sally was able to receive a $10,000 grant from the Stephen and Tabitha King Foundation that we would not be able to get, and that was used for technology.
Why wouldn't you be able to get it if the town took it over?
As a 501c3, we can apply for grants like that. If we are a town-owned or town department, those kinds of grants are not available to us. There may be some that are available through the state, but they're not. Sally can
I'll
answer.
try to be very quick with this. I wanted to go back to the fundraising question you're asking about. What we are researching right now is CRMs, and what they are is they're donor databases that we can build to bring in a more accurate accounting of the people that we can fund, we can ask to be donors to us. It's time to join one of those. There's one that's very popular called Little Green Light. There's another one that's called Every Action where we're interested in, and we are actually, we're on a phone call with the people and on the computer the other day. We think that if we can really fine-tune and make our lists more accurate, several times this year people came in asking us where their annual appeal letter is. We're also researching asking for endowments, looking for people that would be willing to give us large endowments at some point. And so we're hoping to get one of those, on board with one of those in a week or so. And I really believe that if we are more accurate with our donor list, then we will be able to get more donors to donate to the library. The 3 years prior to what you have listed in your documents, there was no money asked for the library. So it is kind of a catch-up thing that's happening right now. And, you know, I know it sounds really strange, and I want to tell you that I really don't think if you decide against giving this money that it looks like you don't support the library. Your job, as you know, is to look at the budget fairly for everyone and decide what you think is best. And that's what I really believe. I do not think you are. Actually, I'll bring up something about Joe. I've been going through the archival documents in 1996 when they did an addition. They had a fundraiser, and they had a 50-50, and you won, and you gave the money back to the library.
Wasn't that nice of me?
And I have a picture of it.
Joe,
Yeah,
you
it
certainly
really-
look like a nice guy.
You know,
Awful.
so, you know, I really, that you are not, none of you are anti-library. I will tell you that for years and years, the library has not asked for money, and they really, really needed to. Now, going back to if the town took over the library, we would not be able to ask for large chunks of money. For example, from the Stephen and Tabitha King, only nonprofits, the Davis Foundation. They actually gave us, Stephen and Tabitha King and the Davis Foundation gave us large sums of money for the addition in 1996. What happens if you become a town department is you can't ask for large sums of money like that. And I'm just going to say the word, I'm going to say it, the phrase, if there ever came a point where there was a capital campaign for the library, you know, I'm just going to say this word too, for an expansion. If that ever happened in the future, our library is very, very small. We are having to do our programming outside of the library for the children because we do not have enough space. And we have increased from a couple of years ago from, it's 1,818 kids that came to programs, parents and kids that came to programs. I mean, we're pushing 2,800 this coming year, and we're having to go outside the building. We don't have a dedicated children's space. We have a little place in the library. There's not enough room even for our story times half the time. What I want to say to you is we have a plan in place with some fundraising software that we're going to be getting that we really feel very confident we will be able to raise money. If the town took over the library, so to speak, it would cost you a lot more money than what we're asking for now. That's all I'm trying to say to you. We're working really, really hard to continue to keep this library going, not to survive, but to thrive. We want it to thrive. That's what we're looking for. And if we could get over this hump this year, I really think it can thrive. And we will not be asking for 20,000, 30,000, 50,000. At that point, you got to come in and grab that library right up. I agree with you on that. But I really think that, you know, if we can really get some more funding from all of you or from the taxpayers, it would really help the library thrive. And you know what I want to say to you? Anytime you want to come in and just take a few minutes and sit down with us and talk to me or talk to the staff or even, you know, talk to patrons in the library, you're always welcome to come in. We'd love to see all of you. And do you have any other questions?
Yes, Peter.
Am I correct in my observation that, and I get this out of a document that was handed out at the prior meeting,
I'm sorry.
that part of the money would be used to cover an existing operating expense budget shortfall in this current fiscal year.
Yeah, there's been a shortfall.
But are you taking steps to prevent that from, I mean, you've still got a few months in this fiscal year.
Yes, yes. Elisa?
Well, as Sally was discussing, we are seriously looking into a CRM database to input all of what we do, fundraising, reports, events, so that we can better manage everything.
Our e-newsletter.
Our e-newsletter.
Everything will be dumped into one software program so that we're able to multitask using that program. We're trying to figure out every way possible to make things as efficient as possible. We have saved some money with our heat pumps that we've gotten in. I did a lot of shoveling this winter. I do a lot of things. When there's green mold on the library in the spring, I go out and scrub it off. We do everything we can to save money in every way. But I just really think if we could, and I know this probably isn't the way to put it, but this is how I put it. If we could just get this hand up, I really think that we could thrive. The library could thrive. And I'd love to have you come in. I mean, Teresa, you came in last summer with summer reading.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what the cost of this fundraising program is and what the ongoing maintenance to that fundraising program is?
That's kind of that's why we budgeted the, was it 2,500?
Yeah.
In, for that, because we are not sure which program we're gonna go with.
It will probably be about $49 a month. And that, if we go with the $49 with the Every Action, right now we pay about $300 for our Constant Contact subscription. That $300 would go away because the Every Action software that we're very interested in, we could do our newsletter through that.
You know, I have to tell you, I've lived in Raymond, then I went away, and then I came back. I've been back for almost 20 years now. And I've only been asked to bake cookies for the library once. I've never been asked for money.
Somebody probably ate your cookies.
Well,
You're so insulting.
you up at the
that.
cemetery now? No, seriously. Bruce sends me a letter every year. I send him some money.
That's been the problem. That has been the problem, and we are working very hard. For example, every new patron that has come into the library for the last 3 years, and we've probably had 300 or 350 people. Connie, the assistant, has put into a database, and we will be able to upload that Excel spreadsheet into our donor database. The time has come for us to get a really good handle on the annual appeal and to find a good software program so that you'll get your letter. We'll make sure that you get your letter. Happy to do it.
Send him a bill.
And you know, we have,
Go with the cookies.
we have, Marshall, we have a bake sale every
I
winter.
know you do, because Rhonda gets the phone calls. I don't know why I don't. Well, I know why I don't. No, I disconnected the phone. That's why.
Yeah, I had a hard time reaching you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got rid of the landline.
Yeah.
To me, putting the numbers on the table, to me, it would make sense for you to consider strongly taking the deficit out of your savings account this year. That will get us $10,000 lower than we are. And I don't see why you wouldn't even consider doing that. You should do that. The other one is I would go for like a $5,000 increase and not a $20,000 increase on this, and see what happens with your fundraising. You know, you saying all kinds of good things about fundraising, but I don't see any solid information that we're going to fundraise in this area other than buy a program. That would be my position on the library.
All right, can I make a proposal? That we give them $10,000, which still keeps us at about 50% of their budget, but not over 50%.
Can we put it in TIF?
I don't think that one would fit.
How much can we pass
No,
the
but what you
tip?
could do, you could take,
I'll second
you
that
could
motion.
take a portion of it and put it in
There was a business.
TIF.
Community development.
You have community development, so you could take, you know, what I would, you know, if you did that, what I would say, you take that to 50, take another 5, put that in TIF, so that you've got 15 instead of 20, which kind of splits it a little bit there, but you're not, we haven't busted the TIF budget yet. We're getting close, but we haven't busted it yet.
Rolf's gonna remember.
You're trying.
But it does fall, it would fall under community development.
All right, so what are you saying out of this budget here?
We give them 10,000 in cash and 5,000 out of the TIF. Does that work, Nancy?
I'm so
You
lost
make it
on
fit?
papers. I'm s-
I think,
Does that work?
I wished it was 5 and 5.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the survey that we did.
Brian, can I
Okay,
cut you
we're
off
past-
here?
Yep, okay, sure.
That survey, my worst fear, my nightmare when we did that survey is that people are gonna go, hey, look what the survey said. Without looking at the end result where people say, oh, I don't want my taxes to go up either. You know? Yeah, the library gets a lot of support. It had a lot of support at town meeting. Somebody yelled at me at town meeting last year because, you know, they couldn't raise the library budget to $90,000. But I mean, I get that. I get that fact. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on that survey that people really like, but yet don't raise my taxes.
Right.
So.
I hear you.
Your 10 and 5 sounds good to me, Joe.
10 and 5?
Yep.
I would not support that. I would go 5 and 5.
I would support the 10 and 5.
5 and 5?
I'd say 5 and 5 only because we gave it, it cuts it in half, but it still gives them more than what we gave them last year. Because I think what we gave them last year, like 66.
Yeah, last year we gave 45. The year before was 64, 40 plus 500.
I want to tell you that I appreciate everything you're saying in your discussion, and I'm just going to say this to you. I appreciate whatever decision you make, but I know if you would agree to 15, it would really get us over that hump, because then we could devote more time to fundraising. I'm just throwing that out there to you. In fact, it's a plea to you.
Can we do a compromise of 12.5? 7,505?
How much is in the TIF?
You got room. You got room in the TIF.
Where's your calculator at?
You got about 40,000 to play with in that TIF.
You know, one comment, just if I may, the 8920, that was the increase in staff and salaries. 7,800 of it is actually increased hours, so it's not a dramatic increase. There's extra hours there. So, you know, one of the things, and I'm fine with the 15. I'd probably be okay with the 12.5, but I do think that probably is one of the places they're going to have to look at. So, depends on what the townspeople want, and you know, nobody wants higher taxes, but it is one of the
5.
10 and 5? Good.
10 and 5?
5, 5.
5, 5.
5, 5.
5, 5? All right, why don't we take a vote then on the 5, 5? All those in favor of the 5, 5?
Don't give me that.
All right. How
Right,
about
10 and 5.
how about the 7,505? All in favor of that?
Do the 10, 5 first.
Okay, 10-5. All in favor of 10-5? That doesn't pass either. That's why I'm trying to get to 12-5.
So 12.5.
a great compromise.
Okay, 7,505. All those in favor of that?
Can we vote more than once?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're revoting now, right?
Yeah, you're revoting.
Yeah, revoting,
Alright.
sure.
12-5.
I go 12-5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 12-5 it is.
Good.
So
Thank you very much.
7,505.
Thank you very
5
much,
out of
everyone.
10, Nance? Okay.
Really just said 12.5.
Or just a recommendation?
Alright, so 5 in the budget, and then how much is going into?
We'll actually vote it on.
5. No, 7,500 in the budget.
So Joe, each of these is what we're putting forth to each, the budget finance will revote essentially.
Well,
at their
actually,
meeting
I'd like to talk about the next selectmen meeting if we can, and what date
So-
we have.
Yeah,
that.
select board would vote first,
Select
correct?
board votes first.
We would then
it
get
goes
a chance,
to you.
okay.
Yeah. All right, so we're taking out 2,500 out of that. All right, CIP.
Keep making it.
Equipment reserve, paving. All right, so we're minus 91.6 out of the fire department reserve. All right, let's talk about Patricia Avenue.
I can start. I'll start. I'll be the bad guy here.
No, you're thinking the same way I am.
No, I don't think so.
All right.
We have a piece of property on Patricia Avenue, and I think it would be worth us to spend some money to find out exactly what we have out there. And I think to find out if we have a peeper palace and a traffic survey, and if either one of those is done, then I think we're done. But at least we find out what we have up there. And the same we did on Egypt Road. We found out what we have. And then later on down the road, we can find out another way to do something with it.
Cause
That
right
would be
now,
my position.
right now we have $89,000 budgeted for this thing, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And what exactly does that 89,000 get us?
I asked that today, and Daniel explained it to me.
So at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, they did put forward $10,000 for due diligence work. If you remember last year, this is when Egypt Road got knocked out because we went out and did the wetland study. I don't think we'll find wetlands this year, but it will give us a better idea moving forward of how much money this project will actually cost. So the phase one, which is what we'll be paying for with that $10,000, is due diligence work, which includes the wetland and vernal pool mapping, preparation of the site plan drawings, and then basically getting the design together and doing all that work that kind of lays out what the project will look like. Phase two, which is the $89,000, is like a little bit left over from the due diligence work, and then is the survey work to get that ready for actually making sure we know where our boundaries are, preparing a base plan, as well as starting to get stuff ready for our permitting, coordination with different districts such as CMP and what other utilities that we'll need to do so we can lay out those plans, as well as getting ready for planning board review, the DEP for a stormwater permit, boundary and topo surveys, traffic movement permit, utility design, and then Air National Guard coordination. So what happens is so this spring we'll be doing a lot of our environmental study, and then the next phase is basically all the groundwork and prep work that needs to be done to get us ready, shovel ready for when the IRT shows up in 2017.
Is there a way that we can move that traffic survey to the head of the...
Nathan, how much do those usually cost us through MDOT? Because you were saying it's pretty pricey, like 10, right?
Yeah, it's in the $10,000 range.
So that would be my whole budget right now that I need to do environmental, which is only a small window of time, which is April.
But to me, it would make more sense to do that before we spent money on surveys and...
At the last select board meeting, you voted to spend $10,000?
Yes.
Yep.
Out of contingency?
That's correct.
That was for the
But that
vernal
was for
pools
the-
and wetlands.
Right. I wasn't there, so I...
Oh, sorry.
It could always be, I could go back and ask for additional monies from the select board to get out of contingency, but it will be budgeted to start that in July. As I said, we have to get the environmentals done in April, because if not, we
Yeah,
miss
that's
our
right.
window. Because that's from as soon as the snow melts until usually the beginning of June.
Well, I guess, Marcia, let me ask you.
Oh, go ahead.
I see where your concerns are, and essentially, I think what he's saying is, where are the stop signs?
Right.
If, your first stop sign is your vernal pool, you fail that, project's dead.
Right.
Is the next stop sign the road survey? If that fails, is the project dead? So the question is, what's your phasing to do things so that we're spending the minimum we can at those
Right.
spots, so that if we hit one of those hard stops, we haven't spent something that's not recoverable.
Well, as I said, I could always put it in, like, try to get a request in this year to get some money from contingency to get that done. I don't know how long they typically take. I will let you know that we have gotten some information regarding a possible another form of egress from this site. So instead of directing all the traffic through Patricia Ave, as you know, we had originally talked about Webb's Mills, but by purchasing abutting land. But however, in order to reduce the cost of the overall project, we took that part out. And it appears that once upon a time, when Sebago Commons, I believe it's called, went in, they were actually looking for access to Patricia Ave, which is from the Wyndham side. So we're going to try to reopen that discussion to see if there's a possibility of redirecting traffic through there, so to help mitigate any traffic issues.
Well,
So
to me, if I may, to me, you're just moving the traffic problem up about 7 blocks because it's going to exit on the same side of 302.
right. Like I said, we're
Not
looking
you,
to
I don't
hopefully.
mean you.
No, I understand what you're saying. So it's just looking to possibly diffuse it so that way, not everybody's exiting on one side. Like we're trying the best we can to get this project, you know, lined up and together so that, you know, if at the very least we can just get the IRT in there to clean up the site so that if we decide to build a la carte later on, like put in just a couple multi-purpose fields or one baseball field, that we have the groundwork ready at a fraction of the cost. Because if we miss this opportunity, I think 17 is possibly the last year that they'll be here, and then finishing up 18 with any bigger projects. So, you know, I'm trying to help the town realize an excellent opportunity and at least get something out of it. So, and I understand the concerns, and I'll, you know, move up our schedule or whatever it is I can do, but it all costs money.
We don't have a survey on that piece of land?
There's some from when it closed, but it's not like topographical or anything that you can use to make construction plans off of it. Most of it just has to do with the surrounding area regarding the dump site.
I have to echo your sentiments on the traffic. I live off of Patricia Avenue, and at times it's a nightmare for a single vehicle to pull out into traffic. Sometimes it's at risk, and I can't imagine 2 or 4 teams worth of cars trying to merge into traffic on 302, especially during summer traffic, spring traffic. We're asking for more funding for the fire department and rescue department, because
we're gonna need more staff.
It's gonna be a quagmire there, and I think that study, the traffic study is very important.
Peter?
My question follows Bob's almost exactly. I was going to ask, at some point in the traffic study or some other type of study, are the residents of that significant neighborhood in there, with essentially one inlet and outlet right now, Patricia Avenue to 302, are they going to be asked what they think about this? And maybe
eventually, yeah.
Yeah, there'll be a public hearing.
They will, okay.
Yeah.
Steve?
Oh, what Bob just mentioned about that traffic out there, and I'm not the engineer, but if you go down by when a church gets out down in Wyndham, you know what kind of a danger that is between the Christian school and the Catholic church. I mean, on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
We can't prejudge this project. That's my thing. I don't want to prejudge what the traffic is going to be like. Maybe DOT will step up and put a light in or something. I don't know that. But I would like to at least explore it. But I don't want to spend $89,000 to do that.
No, but what you would do is you time phase the
Right.
the expenditures. So when you get into, you know, essentially what you're saying is you get in now into phase 3. Phase 3, the first thing you're going to do is the traffic study. If that comes out and says it ain't going to work, then the project stops. Instead of going to the next, you know, so all we're doing, you know, all we're saying is let's time phase, you know, or let's sequence it so that
But can you do the vernal pools in April?
the vernal
then?
pools you have to do in April. You have to do it at spring
But
now.
can you
It's the only
time
time
phase
you
it,
can do
though?
it.
Can they do
I was
that?
misunderstanding them. I thought you were saying
No,
do the
no, I'm
traffic
saying,
before that.
because if you miss the vernal pool, if you miss the April, if you miss the wetland time, then you have to go a whole nother cycle before you can do the vernal pool study.
Well, the other thing is, a traffic survey in April is gonna be a lot different.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And we all know that's not even having anything up on that road.
Are they going to do any bore tests in that, since it's an old landfill? Are they
There are
going to?
test wells already.
Yeah, where this is going isn't anywhere near the landfill.
Right.
Landfill's up past where this is going. It's actually encompassing part of the original septic dump site,
Right.
and then back into the woods.
Fertile ground.
Phil, septic, let's see which
Grows
one.
grass really nice. You don't have to worry about throwing seed down, you know.
What's twice the damage?
Grass says green growth.
Right.
Green
So-
growth.
It seems like the bigger question is, let's just say everything comes out honky-dory, you know, they figure out the traffic thing. I mean, are we saying that, okay, we should move ahead with something that's gonna have a $2 million cost? I mean, are we saying that that's I mean, it
That's
seems
down the road.
That's down the road. Well, I mean, it seems like if that's a non-starter,
I think you
then
gave
why
that to
do
us.
the study traffic and all of that others?
Brian, she had given us a whole different version.
Okay, sorry, it's down to $1 million, right? I
Yeah,
thought I'd seen
yeah.
something.
the total project cost would now be 1.2, and on the third phase, you would be looking at around $1 million. As I said, those numbers could go down. I want to be kind of clear about this. So that would include going forward with the project as it sits right now. 2 multi-purpose fields, a bunch of things. But then you have to, like, I talked to Chairman Reynolds about this, and one of the important things to remember is that number one, we can do fundraisers and things like that to get specific things pieced together once the third phase comes.
Marshall has cookies
And
to
then-
sell.
I know who I'm calling for a
I'll
bake
write that
sale,
down.
so, and then the other portion is that because we'll be downgrading the way Mill Street is used into T-ball fields, we could then take things like the signs and then move them from there up to Patricia Avenue. So therefore, we're repurposing what it is that we already own, but right now, it's built all into the budget as new because we haven't gotten there yet, so.
What I'm thinking, Brian, is that we find out what we have. The town has this asset, let's find out what it has. And then later on, if we decide to put a hotel or a baseball field, that's another entirely
That's
separate
fair.
decision.
Yeah, I guess I'm with Joe then in terms of just the 89 is kind of making me go, so.
How much are you willing to spend?
Well, I think.
I mean, you've already given 10. 10's gone.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think we need to spend sufficient money to do the traffic survey at a reasonable time of the year. And whatever else that would be absolutely necessary for us to properly evaluate this asset.
But
If it's a survey, it's a survey, but I'm not sure we need a survey at this point in time.
I think my concern is, can we make everything, because I know there's certain timelines that you
Yeah,
have to
that's a
follow is what
problem.
it is. But on the other hand, following those timelines, we have to have an accurate survey as far as traffic goes, because they have to be out there when it's baseball season,
Right.
when it's,
Right.
and if you don't, it's a waste of 10,000 or whatever that money is to do a survey if,
It has to be done timely.
Right.
Month of July or whatever it is.
And I'd like to also add, the other portion of this is, if you're looking at what the highest and best uses of
Oh, yeah, that's another
the
way to say it.
fields, or like, are you, because remember, I have a pending application with the IRT, so if you're just looking for the highest and best use, I just want to know, because I need to remove that from the table so they're not wasting their time bidding on these projects and then amping up to get ready for them and building them into their budgets. Because that's the other portion is I've contacted them, they know about the application, and they're excited and, you know, about our continued support, and they're ready to continue with projects with Raymond. But as I said, if we're looking at highest and best use or what the potential is versus doing an IRT project, I would like to just know so that I can answer that to them.
Do they care what the end result is?
yeah, it's a matter of how
In a
much
sense,
money.
Because they want to build, they want to build roads and stuff. Do they
Well,
care?
right now what it is they're trying to balance out the projects that they have, because right now Camp Hines is focusing on vertical, so is Casco. Casco just is applying to build a new town office through them. So those are all vertical projects. And, so they'll want the horizontal work. But if it's just like going and pushing around a little bit of dirt, they might just say,
Okay.
thanks, but no thanks. So,
So we're kind of walking some fine tightropes here.
Well, but, so what's being asked for in the CIP right now is the 89,000, correct?
that's correct.
The fact is, if it's in the CIP, it's not spent.
I understand that.
So, I mean,
And I'm okay with the 89,000
Yeah.
sitting in the CIP,
Yeah.
but let's spend it wisely.
Right,
and
yeah.
You still have to raise it.
Well, true, no, but the fact is, it's not.
You're not spend it, but you still have to raise it, which means you still have to
Well, we
increase
can
the
still-
bill rate to get there.
Right. But what we're saying then is, you put that in there, but what you're doing is saying, let's smart phase
Right.
what we do there, so that if something comes up in, at the $15,000 level and says, it ain't gonna happen.
Right, so
That's
it knocks
that's
it
all
out
we're
early.
committed to at that point.
Sure sounds like a TIF project to me.
No,
I think this is a stretch.
The answer's like, no.
we put a sidewalk in.
Yeah.
Sidewalks are allowed.
Sidewalks are allowed. We can have a sidewalk all around the old dump. People go for walks around the dump.
Can we move on to the school IRT?
Well, no, first of all,
Sorry.
where are we? Are we okay with 89,000?
I agree with Marshall. I really think we need to look at the traffic that's coming in and out of there. I mean,
Right. But-
it's bad now.
Right, but that's, what you're saying there is you're looking at your phasing of tasks. So the two questions are, number one, is it all right to keep the 89,000 in the CIP? Secondarily, you're saying, okay, let's make sure we time phase things right so that we don't spend if we, we're not spending if, we're not overspending if we find out we get bad news.
Right.
I wonder if we can take a few minutes at some point in time and reprioritize the events that have to happen on this so that we know where the stops are.
Well, I think we need to get
Represent
those.
the number
Well,
later.
here's my position. I'm not spending 89,000. I'm not gonna raise 89,000 to put into this.
Right.
Not to see what works. It's just, I'm willing to put less in it. I mean, you already spent 10. I think another 25 gets you another.
Will
to the
25 get us a traffic
Well,
survey?
it will
and
give me a traffic survey, but won't get me shovel ready for the IRT.
we don't
I've
need
heard
to-
that term shovel ready before,
Yep.
2009.
Yeah, exactly.
What?
I don't know. I'm shovel ready right now for when the IRT hits next week. So I think that I've managed the current IRT projects very well. So
I think it's the term. It's a pejorative term for conservatives.
Yeah.
Yes. It irks me.
25,000.
25,000 buys us a traffic survey plus a couple other things.
Yep.
I would say 25 would be good.
25?
But is that gonna
Yeah,
hurt
I
us
like
with
that.
the RT program if we decide to go through with it?
We're not even sure they're gonna approve it.
Right.
Let's take baby steps here. We have to have a special town meeting to raise more money, we could do that. But I think you need to approach it much more slowly than what we're doing here. This budget has just shot out of control from last year. We've spent a lot of money last year, and now we're saying, oh, as long as we have money, let's just keep going. Instead of cutting back where we should be, I think we went a little crazy. And I don't know, just me, just my position.
No, I think so too. I think the floodgates open a little bit too much this time.
Yeah,
Okay, so 25,000,
25?
25.
All right.
seconding work, Danielle.
I'll be able to get the traffic study done. So and then I'll just probably have to come back to the select board and ask for the remaining money.
So you have 35,000 to work with, is what you're gonna have to work
With
with.
the caveat that the traffic survey is done at a reasonable time of the
Yeah,
year.
it
Not,
has to be in the summer.
yeah, can't be done next week.
Can we, and I'm gonna ask this, can we get an update as far as, okay, say we can get that done in July or whenever, at the time that it's the busiest there, can we get some kind of a report back to say, okay, we're still within the IRT, if this all passes, if all these steps do work?
The
that we can
IRT
see-
application is due me first. I have the preliminary in right now, so I just need to, then they tell me whether they're coming this fall.
So if we don't do, you put that in May 1st,
Yep.
we don't get the survey done till like June or July, and then we have to pull it even though they've already got it planned.
Right.
Is there a penalty for that?
No, other than this is just the
Bad
working
reputation.
relationship I have with them now.
Right, sorry.
I think I can shed a little light on this. I do believe when they do the traffic study, they're gonna do it off from data that they already have.
I know.
Should
They're
have
gonna
a
come
bunch
up,
of data
visit the
out
site,
there, right.
see what we want, and they're gonna look at the data. It doesn't really matter what time of year you're gonna do it.
Oh.
They already know what the traffic count is on 302. They already know the issues on that corridor down through there.
So we can do it soon then,
As long as we get a fair number.
right? So if we do it soon, then it can kind of put us back on a time schedule.
Sure, I can call tomorrow and get a time frame from them of what they need from us to get going on it, I would assume.
And let's go ahead and do that then.
They have rubber strips out there a few years ago when they rebuilt that bridge.
All right, how about the technology equipment upgrade?
Alright, so wait a minute, the 136 went down to 25? No, 35 now.
35.
We already gave 10, 10, so we're 25.
Joe, I think Dominic was ready to say something.
Kevin's in, Buffalo.
Thank you. Buffalo.
Cold.
Feelings on this?
My feeling is, and I said it last year, and I'll say it again, we as a town made a decision to go forward with this type of activity, and I think that we have to go forward. It's like a speeding train. We have to go forward. I looked at pricing some of these individual items on their list, and I can't find them any. Well, I can find them a few dollars cheaper, but not much.
Yeah, I did quite a bit of research.
And I buy stuff myself out of B&H in New York, and it's comparable prices. I think you're in the ballpark. You're not buying Cadillacs, but if we've made the decision to have a broadcast studio and so forth, we have to support it. And I know that's 100% off from what I said about the library.
Well,
I'm sorry, that's
the biggest issue in this town is getting things out to the public.
right.
And we are really limited. We have a Facebook page, we have the web page, but as far as watching these meetings, it's the only way for people to find out. I mean, anything that's put into the newspapers is pretty much someone's opinion. You know what I mean? Is what that is. And the other thing is if we're gonna have the meeting as the official record versus the DVD, I forget, I got it backwards. Meeting. The meeting's the official record now, right?
No,
Okay, I did get that backwards then. Right, but we have to have the DVD off of something, so I think I know, we need everything. This is what you're thinking that we're all saying here tonight, Joe, too, but.
Bob?
We've come a long way since the Raymond Roadrunner.
Yep.
A long way, you know, $100,000, a long way. But that's the way things are done today. You know, they're done through internet. And I realize that the equipment that we have now is old technology. There's reformatting that you need to do to produce it. This equipment would allow you to easier, actually, would it be on YouTube now?
It is on YouTube.
It is on YouTube now.
It is on
But it would
YouTube.
be a better workflow, is the thing, so it would be easier to get it from here to there, hopefully, and actually, I'm hoping to minimize the amount of hours that it takes to get it from point A to point B.
I guess my biggest fear is what happens when our equipment we have now fails. Then we
We're
have
gonna be
to
proactive,
drop
I mean,
a hatchet
reactive instead of
and
proactive.
do it. Do we be proactive or do we be reactive? I prefer to be proactive.
Where's everybody else?
Is this a one-time for the foreseeable future? I recognize equipment does degrade, but it seems like our technology budget continues to go up at a dramatic pace.
Kevin says it was a one-time changeover.
The CIP stuff is a one.
Yeah, okay, I'm talking about the CIP here. I'm talking about the CIP.
But, yeah,
I'm
in
just
my opinion,
Up here, just in case.
what's
I
gonna
have-
happen?
I have it
Just to
all
look good, huh?
Hopefully you've got that camera on you, Tom.
Yeah, you know,
I mean,
I'm-
you know,
I
my,
don't want a presentation all over again, but all you gotta do is look at this technology, maintenance, upgrade. That's what you're gonna have every year in this broadcast studio eventually.
well,
And that's just a fact. If that's what
Right,
people
you have to
want,
maintain this stuff.
Right.
Once you've got it, you gotta
Yeah.
maintain it.
right?
yeah, we started down the path. We started down the path years ago to do this, and it, quite frankly, it does. You know, people do watch it.
Yep.
People do pay attention to it. People may complain about, you know, and you know, I think Don gets it more when something's not on than when something is on. But you know, the fact is, it is being utilized. We made the, you know, we all the boards years ago made the decision that we wanted to keep the lines of communication open as well as we can, and we've cut off the Roadrunner, we've cut off things like that. The newspapers have somewhat cut us off, so I mean, this is the way that we're gonna go there and be there. Yes, it's a big chunk to chew right now. Maybe we could, I mean, the cable company's not willing to do much renegotiating to give us much there, so it's coming from here. But I think from the standpoint of what does it pay us in the long run, I think it does pay us in the long run. So
So we'll leave it in? Everybody okay with that?
I
Just on the cable
About that long, Dominic, okay? Keep
never
it
mind.
short.
Go-
It's
go ahead.
10 o'clock already. I'm trying to get us
I
out
was
of
just
here.
gonna put in the point that they are willing to go to almost double what they're offering us right now for our return from them. It's
Who,
just,
Time Warner?
yeah, but they said they just pass it on to the customer, so it's kind of a double.
Well, that's a bargain, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I was just letting you know what they had said.
I'll give you more.
Steve wanted to say something.
Steve?
just less than 30 seconds. I guess I'll have to ask the town manager. You're saying everybody's watching this, but I don't see anybody else coming to town meetings. I don't see anybody else showing up in June or whenever we have our town meeting. That hasn't gotten bigger and bigger. I mean,
I think that's actually gotten smaller when you lost the school component, but I think that people, we do have ways to tell the truth with the number of people that are watching. We can probably, get that data, but I do get a fair number of people who contact me when the programming, is interrupted for whatever reason. I have people throughout the town who, I travel the town, frequently, and people are always referencing, saw this or saw that on television. So, there is a viewership out there. There are people who borrow the DVDs and for whatever reason and study them. I don't know what that's about, but there are people who do that. And there are people who, this group I think is growing exponentially. People who have real estate here and summer here, but who are in other places in the winter. So they're live streaming. They're using YouTube. They're watching remotely. We have people. I got a report tonight from somebody. I got an email tonight watching remotely, and so I can't tell you if it's
is it $100,000 worth?
I don't know. I mean, my way of thinking of it is the town voted to support it years ago, and it's now been 11 years, 12 years, and so it's time to refresh some of the equipment. But I don't think it's and I know it's late, but I just want to make one statement. It's, on the one hand, we want to be relevant, we want to be cutting edge, we want to do things in the way that should be done, and this is what is the future, as somebody referenced. This is the future, this is how it's being done. But on the other hand, we want the lowest cost possible. That's a real dilemma, that's a real problem, and so for you to figure out, I guess, but people want this service. People are maybe not demanding yet, but they expect this service, and they expect additional digital services, so we either go that way or we don't.
Joe, I know you're a big fan of the survey, but you have 56% of people saying that they don't know about online streaming of town meetings and the like, and you have 46% of people saying they don't know about cable TV and public access channels. That's, significant. So, they're just data points.
I know you say that people will call you if it's not on at 9 o'clock and you said it was. Well, Channel 6 gets a million calls when soap operas aren't on. I mean, what I see is when people watch it at home, they can't voice their opinion. There's no feedback back to this board. So is it like watching a soap opera?
Probably. I think people do like the drama that sometimes occurs. Not so much tonight, maybe a boring show tonight, but people like watching it for that, I think. People like watching it to stay informed. I mean, people have various reasons they watch it. I think that's true of any of the towns that have this service. Not everybody wants to be out there and drive out on a cold night and sit in the audience here, but if they can watch it in their living room and know what's going on, and maybe it's a soap opera, I don't know, but they do it.
Do we let the townspeople know how much they're paying to watch this?
Well, it's all published and available on the web, electronic again.
There's nobody at the town meeting.
Last year we had a fairly good turnout last year.
I guess the other thing too, if you want to make the argument of, here this term, not so much lately, but we always did hear it, people talk about the idea of transparency and, making it available so people do know what's going on. I mean, then it's your choice you can be an informed citizen or not.
The other advantage to this is that with it being downloadable, the videos being downloadable, people that are summer residents can watch it from anywhere. So.
They can do that now.
They do that now.
And the question I think,
Arizona.
will this equipment survive forever? No, but do we need $52,000 worth of new equipment? I don't know.
All right. TIF, we added a few things to the TIF. You got all those, right, Nancy? About 22 items more on the TIF.
Yeah, we added 10,000, we added 10,000 to it.
10,000, all right. The school IRT playground,
Isn't that dead?
that's pretty much
Can I do
dead,
the one
right?
thing on the TIF?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't know we'd
Nope,
moved on it.
go ahead.
Just on the Sebago Lake Health, so is that, we're gonna keep that in? We'd never heard from Diane Potman.
Well, she sent an email
We
tonight.
heard from her again tonight,
Yeah.
saying that she had some medical issues and
Yep.
was
Okay.
unable to be here, but we have not, you're correct, we have not actually in person heard from her on this.
Is it possible to give her maybe a smaller amount to do an exploration? Because I spoke with some of the folks from RWPA. They're already allocated their resources for 2015. So they would not be one of the resources that she could utilize for, and they're mentioned a number of times in the proposal. So I think the idea, I'm all for, believe me, I am all for anything that's gonna make the lakes more healthy. Not only because I happen to environmentally think that's true, but also because economically it's critical to the town. But I'm wondering if that allocation, it's a little bit like our earlier conversation. I don't know enough to be able to be wise about it. I'd be fine giving a small amount of seed money to do more planning and have her come back for 2016.
So, $1,500?
Well,
That's-
can I,
Yeah, go ahead.
my feeling is, and again, I'm all for protecting the water, but to me, by giving her money, we're paying two people for the same service, and I'd rather run it through Raymond Waterways. I'd rather run the 1,500 through Raymond Waterways and let them do it, than have a separate line.
So saying
item
give
for
them
this.
1,500 more for that,
Right, increase the Raymond Waterways.
if they're willing to do that.
We do have representatives if you want to
Maybe we can ask them for their,
Would you like to stand up and address us? Well, that, you didn't think we'd ask any questions of you.
So what was the question?
Can you do with $1,500 more as far as milfoil mitigation?
We can use as much money as we can get for milfoil mitigation, but as I understood Diane's proposal, it was to do the entire body of Sebago Lake and not just the Raymond shore, which is what we're working on. She did not consult with us on that plan. We recently saw a document that laid out her ideas, and I would say there's the germ of some good ideas there.
But it's not
But
flushed out yet.
There are also some not so good ideas, and there are some big holes that haven't been filled. I think the idea of making a small donation in that direction to help develop something that is more of a realistic plan has a better chance of working, and doing the initial organizing would make sense.
Okay, thanks, yep.
Is she a member of a group? Is there more than one person, or is it just her?
I don't know.
I think, Don, you've had conversations, right? So
I knew you were going to ask.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
Don, how about getting on the hot seat here?
No, I didn't mean to do that.
I'm going to say that there are, once again, there are many, many people on all of our bodies of water who are concerned about the, critical issue of milfoil. So is she the first and only person who talks to me about milfoil? No. Is she the driving entity behind this? And there are many other people who support it, who are lakefront owners? Yes. I think she has a small steering committee coalition of people who are, interested in this on Big Sebago, but she's the driving force. And she's gone to all the other towns. She's spoken to the town manager group that I'm a member of, and she has generated interest at some level in those towns. Does that relate to contributions? I don't know, but we have historically been a town that contributes to this, while other towns don't. I think on this one, you might want to add a contingency that says, X amount of money, allowing that everybody's in, that kind of thing. That doesn't sound like he does it.
It's hard to give to an unorganized group.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
I mean, she's a dynamic person with a great idea, and I think we should support it and not in any way, extinguish this idea. But yet it comes back to the kind of the snowmobile club argument in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, she's had various issues and various reasons, out of town, health issues. I mean, I don't know enough about it, nor do you, I don't think, to be able to explain this and satisfy the concerns that you might have. Yet, it's a great idea, yet she's getting, you know, funding from other sources. I think she even said if we don't fund it, that they're personally willing to fund it, so that's commitment.
Hang on.
I'm all set.
Raymond Waterways patrols and maintains Raymond's shorelines. The Sebago Health will be any community on the Sebago Lake perimeter. So funding that entity may not actually benefit Raymond at all, where I would be more like to fund the Raymond shorelines and not the Sebago Health.
How do other people feel?
Well, just to reemphasize my point, that's why I wanted to run it through Raymond Waterways and let them deal with the issue, because the way it is now, we're giving money for standard.
Well, one of the principal areas that they're working on, of course, is Turtle Cove, and Turtle Cove is Raymond. Right. So that's what she's working on, I think, in a big way.
If I may, just to confuse issues a little more, the story with milfoil is that it doesn't respect property lines or state lines.
It's not a political issue, I understand.
You've got to do the entire lake ultimately, or it's a waste of money. You can't just do Raymond and nothing else forever. Because the weed just is going to creep from one town to another to another.
My point is, there's plenty in Raymond to start with.
Oh, there absolutely is.
And that's what she's focused on, I think.
All right, so what are people willing?
1,500 is.
1,500 and then 1,500 more to Raymond Waterways? Would you bring them in? No, just 1,500.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you get overall.
So minus 1,500.
To what? To Sebago
But
Health.
did you want the 1,500? I don't want to complicate things here, but I
Strictly
heard
Sebago
it should
Lake
go
Health.
through. It should go through Raymond Waterways if
No,
they
they
will.
No.
No.
Right down
Leave it
our
separate.
1,500.
Okay.
So we'll call it seed money or whatever.
Right, seed
And
money for Sebago
should we
Health.
make it, to Don's point, should we make it contingent upon other monies or just exploration funds and leave it at that?
But with an accounting as to what's done with it.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. I mean, just like
She's
any-
asking every town around the lake for money.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's see what you can do with that. You can come back next year with a larger proposal then.
All right, so the school IRT project is dead.
No,
Yeah.
no, it's not good.
Well, it's not dead, but I.
It's going through the school.
It is. I heard that they have half the money so-called
Yeah.
budgeted, and they're looking for more money to get it budgeted, and
Well,
then
they have,
it should go through the cost
they
share.
have it in there as a line item in their
Yeah.
budget.
So we can
it should
cross it
come out
off
here.
our
Yeah.
budget.
That's regardless of tomorrow's vote.
Gotta get people out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make it
Are we
big
all
enough.
done?
Yep.
All right, so tomorrow night there's a vote in Wyndham at the auditorium at
Where the
6
pillars are.
o'clock.
5:30.
Be there at 5:30 for the public hearing. 6 o'clock is the vote. It's to change the funding formula for the town of Raymond and Wyndham. It's a phase-in, 3-year reduction of 9%, 3% a year over the next 3 years.
You gotta do this.
This is something that we should have done a long time
Does
ago.
the select board offer a point of opinion on how to vote?
No.
Yes.
Well, I mean,
I say yes.
privately, but there's
If you would
been no formal vote by the select board to support it. But I think every selectman is supporting it.
Okay. Because it would result in a reduction of taxes?
3 years to result in that, and it would also, as far as major costs go, as far as health, we pay for them. Anything new or in addition would be paid for by the town that brought it on, and any minor, could be any renovations, would be split for the cost share.
Right, it's any new building, any new construction
No,
will be
because we're
paid
taking
for
public now.
by the town in which it's built.
And this is just a straight vote tomorrow,
Straight vote,
whoever shows
up and
up,
down.
votes,
Yep.
yes, no, so.
And I'm
Right.
gonna ask for it to be a written ballot, because some people feel uncomfortable about
Okay.
raising their hands.
So we now, yes,
And I
How
thought that
soon will we know where we are on LD1? I mean, there's
we
no-
are below LD1 right now. with what
We were
did
below
tonight.
LD1 limit before we started.
Right.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
So, selectmen have a couple of cleanup items to do.
We're gonna refresh this document in the next couple of days.
All right, Warren,
Make a motion to pay payroll expenses summaries in the amount of $44,853.39.
second, all in favor? Unanimous?
Okay, make a motion to pay treasurer's warrant in the amount of $112,680.34.
Second, all in favor? Unanimous?
Motion to adjourn.
We're adjourned.